28th, 2017 meeting of Milton Conservation Commission. The commission members are appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the State Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town bylaw that governing wetlands as well. As a matter of formality, we have 2 points to make. The first is that we welcome any comment, question, criticism, whatever. We invite public speaking, but we would ask that you identify yourself when you begin speaking, because we have a recorder here for the compliance with the open meeting law. And as a second point of protocol, we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Michael Blute.
Arthur Doyle.
Hans Van Lingen.
Ingrid Beatty.
Kathy Brown.
And we have 19 agenda items tonight, so we're going to try to move as quickly as possible. The first is an order of conditions relating to 175 Governor Stoughton Lane, Milton Woods, from which I will recuse myself. Because my law firm does represent Pulte Home Development. Okay. Right, what's that?
Yeah, thank you.
Just have a couple boards to help try to explain our request.
You need more than one stand, or?
No. I just have a little short presentation to try to concisely and in an organized manner just explain to the commission what we're here for.
Okay. Could you introduce yourself, just so it's on the tape?
For the record, my name is Mark Mastriani, here representing Pulte Homes in New England. And with me tonight is Michael Rosati, who's the engineer on the Milton Woods project all along. So the reason we're here is for Milton Woods. It's been several months. So if you recall, Milton Woods is a 23-lot single-family subdivision being proposed on the town farm at the end of Governor Stoughton Lane. The project gains access out to Unkwity Road. We were here and were issued an order of conditions on March 10th. That's the last time we were here. The order was recorded on March 30th. Since we were here, we've been working with the DCR on an access permit. So as I said, the 23-lot subdivision obtains sole access off of Unkwity Road. And there's about a 200-foot strip of land that's owned and controlled by the DCR here. So we needed to get an access permit from them. And we have recently received that permit, and the DCR did require some plan changes, plan improvements, solely in this area of the DCR land. So the order of conditions, all of the plan work that we worked together over all of those meetings, that nothing has changed. So what we're focused on are plan updates to the portion of the project that crosses the DCR land. We did get an access permit from them, and we have since gone back to the planning board as well, simultaneously with your commission, and the planning board did approve the updated plans last week. So we've completed that step as well. And we're here tonight before you per condition 51 in our order of conditions. It requires us, it requires the commission to approve any changes to the plan. So we wanted to submit the updated plans to you folks and get your review and approval. We feel the changes are very insignificant. They're actually, I think you'll see that they're actually improvements to the plan. There's only a small portion of work in your wetland jurisdictional buffer zone, and the limit of work has not expanded outside of the previously approved limit of work. So I'll show you the changes.
Mike Rosati from Marchand Associates. I just wanted to clarify what Mark just said. Limit of work does increase outside of the buffer zones, but in the buffer zone did not expand. Sorry.
Oh, okay. So this is a blown-up view of the grading plan in the DCR right-of-way. And essentially the plan changes are just a consists of a couple items. One is we remove the large retaining walls that we previously proposed along both sides of the road coming off of Unquity Road into the development. The DCR was adamant that they did not want any of the artificial hard walls, and they wanted a more naturalistic post-construction landscaped design that would be more compatible, consistent with what is there today. So the walls have been removed, and one other change is DCR had a concern with some water coming down the roadway, some runoff in getting into Unquity Road. So they asked us to add a couple extra catch basins. We added a set of catch basins at the end to capture any runoff coming down the road before it hits Unquity Road. And then we pipe it over to the wetland over here. And previously the water ran down the road, got into the shoulder of Unquity Road and went to the same wetland. So there's no increase in runoff, there's no change in design. It's just the manner of which it gets there. So with the, there it is. So with the removal of the walls, what they asked us for was was revegetated slopes in its place. So what we've proposed now is the walls are gone, and it's a seeded with a wild mix, seed mix, and a heavily revegetated slopes as you drive in. The landscape species were provided by DCR. They're approved by DCR, and they're intended to be native species and trees that you see in the woods today. So the intent of the design is to recreate the existing forest as you would see it today. We have proposed 79 native trees and 10 shrubs, and then the DCR approved seed mix and the design. And the one thing, so that's the approved landscaping plan by DCR in the DCR right-of-way.
Is that landscaping plan and the planting list in our packet?
At the very end.
It is,
Oh,
yes.
okay, all right.
Last 3 pages.
And also
That's okay.
when we were last here, we worked together on this native landscaping plan that included some trees that we worked together. So all of the trees that we previously committed to remain, with the exception of what we previously committed to up in the front. I heard you asking that question earlier.
Yep.
So we're only removing.
So the reduced numbers that we saw on the list are in this zone, and you're removing them because of the quantity you're actually putting back in.
Right, we're actually adding trees. So the 24 flowering dogwoods that were previously proposed along the top of the wall here are being replaced with the 79 native trees and the 10 shrubs. So there's a great add in existing trees. And then other than that, all of the other previously committed to trees, those all remain. So
So now there's no dogwoods at all?
No, there's no dogwoods at all in this location, but there's still 42 dogwoods throughout the rest of the community. So, Mr. Chairman, with that, that's the reason why we're here today. We hope that the commission finds this an improvement to the plans, an insignificant change, and we ask the commission to approve the updated plans for Milton Woods.
From my perspective, we talked about doing something along this line during the review that we had here previously, and my recollection is the reason you couldn't do this was because of the walls and because you were afraid of encroaching too far on the DCR land. The fact that they're on board with this, I think, just jives exactly where we wanted to go originally anyways. The one question that I have is, I have concerns, I know I drive Unquity every day. There seems to be a fair number of trees at the outlet, and did you do a review of sight lines and all that kind of stuff in terms of distance and travel and speed? for Unquity Road?
We did. We have sightline triangles. They're not shown on this plan, but they are still the same triangles that were under the previous design. And we purposely didn't locate any trees over here. In here, there's no trees because of those those sightlines that you were just speaking of. So we've looked at the sightlines, and that has not changed.
Okay.
That's a very important aspect of the project.
So the one thing I would ask is during construction, when you're thinking about planting the trees, that you evaluate that before you actually put them in the ground and propose backing them up if the sight line is actually too short. It's one thing to look at it on a piece of paper, it's another thing to sit in where you would be in a car and get a sense of where the sight line is, because that's a very fast road. This is the windy portion of it, and people do tend to slow down here, but it's still a quicker road than it should be.
And adjusting the sight line for growth.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
The DCR also, we had an extensive meeting twice on site relative
You did.
to those issues.
Good.
Any of the other commissioners have questions or comments? Or
I think it's great.
No. Very pleased.
are there any abutters that have any comments or questions concerning the proposal? Are there any members of the public that would like to ask questions or comments? Good, David?
Quick question.
Could you introduce yourself? Can you come up to the microphone and introduce yourself, David?
Really quick question. My
Sure.
name is David Kellman. I'm town meeting member precinct 1. I live at 9 Crown Street. Just a really quick question about the trees. There was a concern about the sight line.
Yes.
Is it, when the sight line will it be as it, when you put it in now, or if you project 5 or 10 years from now, when the trees mature, how will the sight lines be affected, let's say, 10 years from now?
Good question, and that's exactly the point that I was addressing in allowing for the sight line for growth, so that as they mature and they grow, the sight line isn't compromised.
Okay, great. And just for my edification, do you have a list of the trees and other plantings that I could take a look at?
Yeah, they're actually, these documents are all public record.
Yes,
You can get a copy of that through the, you get them from me. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay,
It's good?
great. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Any other comments or questions, or with that, do I hear a motion to either in favor of or the proposal? Motion to approve. Motion to approve? Second. Everyone in favor? Anyone opposed? Unanimous? Thank you very much. I think it's a significant improvement to,
We feel the same way.
Good idea.
We spent a lot of time with DCR out in the field and on the plans going forward.
yeah, thank you very much. You want to grab John, if he's right there?
Yes, why is grab him? Just so there's no confusion later. Can you guys sign the order?
Sure. Oh, yeah, yeah. Yep.
And I'll grab John.
It's nice when DCR makes things better.
It's also nice when they answer your questions before you ask them. Thank you.
John, in case you didn't hear, we approved the recommended changes.
Oh, you did? Good. Good, good. All right, folks, thanks for your patience. Next on the agenda is informational Pope Pond. The man with all the patience.
Hey.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. Good evening, everybody. My name is William Brockoff. I live at 73 Dexter Street, town meeting, whatever, precinct 1. And I'm here to discuss the possibility of building a bridge over Post Pond. I've never done anything like this before, so I need guidance and direction. Basically, after a couple discussions here and many other discussions with neighbors and others in the Friends of Pope's Pond, we determined that, I don't know if you remember the map that we had up here, but there was a problem with some of the private land coming right down to the Pine Tree Brook. And we determined that due to that, and also due to the fact that that land was really, really rough, that trying to drive a path through to Canton Ave really didn't seem that feasible. And so we started to have more conversations about actually putting a bridge across, just like the one on the north side of Pope's Pond that's currently there.
Who built that one on the
Well,
side?
I know that the engineers were from Northeastern, but that was way before my time.
I think there was Eagle Scouts, I think, or people from Northeastern.
Okay. Yeah, I thought that the Northeastern engineering students were involved, but I didn't know who
If Eagle Scouts did it,
coordinated.
there were some very capable Eagle Scouts,
Right.
which is possible. I actually contacted John Thompson to learn more about it, and that was it turns out he said that was just previous to his hire, but he remembered one of the students that worked on it, so I contacted that student who now works at a firm south of here, and he directed me towards someone at Northeastern who might know, and I went back and forth until I found the American Society of Civil Engineers, I think is what they're called, and got in touch with a professor. He took me to lunch. Months later, he brought out a crew of his students. I'll call them a crew. It was like, 4 or 5 of his students. And they were really excited about it.
The new bridge.
They were excited about the process of helping us with the bridge, and then also with a couple other problem areas in the conservation area. Like, for instance, there's that ditch where Lafayette Circle is, and then the Pine Tree Brook path, goes where it goes over the other bridge. You have to go down through a ditch there that gets washed out, and they're also interested in helping us come up with a solution for that. So they're excited and just looking for approval for the next step.
How would you pay for it? And not
a
that we
great
get involved in finances, but we don't want half a bridge built.
No. That was something that has been discussed quite a bit. Daniel Dulaski, the professor who's in charge of the American Civil Society of Engineers, or whatever it is, indicated that Northeastern might have some alumni that would be interested in donating time, materials, help, machinery. Of course, I think that there's an option of possibly going to some local businesses and who might be interested in donating some materials or possibly also labor or machinery. There's certainly a lot of neighbors who would be able to donate some time, including myself. As far as funds beyond that go, I don't know. Maybe a fundraiser, or maybe the town would be inclined to donate a little themselves. Not there yet.
All right.
I was looking for the
Support for the
putting
for
the horse in
concept.
front of the cart to begin with.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
And I think your timing is good, because recently we've all taken an opportunity to go out and walk around Pope's Pond just to see its value, and try to figure out a way to open it up to the public. Because a lot of people don't know it exists.
Yeah.
And it's very pretty.
Yeah.
And we actually, about a year ago, looked at trying to see if we could, without the bridge, get out to Canton Avenue, but it's such a pinch point that it would be very difficult to do that. And I still don't know the status of that. I don't know what the number is, 639, 659?
It's-
Louisville Avenue? It's the one right on the corner of Canton and
vacant.
Louisville Avenue.
I mean, it's vacant, and the developers don't seem interested in having any sort of conversation,
Okay.
at least not from what I can tell. I mean, I've tried to contact the Realtor to,
Yeah, so did I. And I didn't get any response back. Because we were trying to see if we could, lop off a piece of that land so that we wouldn't have to do the bridge, and you could still get around the pond.
Yeah.
But this is, I think it's a feasible alternative. The only comment that I have about the other bridge, which is very sturdy, very impressive, it has a lip on it that makes it very difficult for handicapped access. And that might be something to keep in the back of your mind if this bridge goes through in terms of design.
I already discussed that with the engineer, or with the engineers. We talked about that. They shrugged it off. They said it's a non-issue. They could figure out a way to make it much more accessible. They shrugged it off in the sense that they figured they couldn't quite understand why the other one had it, other than it probably had to do with, I think that the cement pilings, or whatever you call them, the structure that it's sitting on may have already existed before the actual bridge. I'm not sure, though. But they couldn't understand why they didn't plan for that.
Right. And I think it's probably still fixable.
They thought so.
All right. Are there any comments, questions? I think you're going to find probably good support from the Conservation Commission.
Cool.
But anybody want to weigh in?
I guess the only comment that comes to mind is just I can believe that the concrete from the footings, right, the piers that they launch off of were probably pre-existing. That kind of explains that. In developing the plan, whatever you can come up with that minimizes the impact and kind of the amount of excavation that's required is going to simplify it from our perspective in terms of impact on the pond and all that kind of stuff. And if you can, the bridge that they put in over across into Ponzit, I think they used a crane to drop it into place. So if you can find someone, there are people and contractors in town that have cranes, you can find someone that can allow you to build the bridge separately and then drop it into place on top of some kind of structure, that would probably simplify the whole thing as well. But it's a matter of coordinating it and getting someone that's willing to give you time up with a crane,
Yeah, I was thinking that as I've been brainstorming for quite a time now, that simple was the key here.
Yeah.
And I was sort of further brainstorming that, given that Milton's the home of Buckminster Fuller, and given his philosophies on building, that we should go as simple as possible. Maybe there's a new name for the bridge right there. I don't know.
Yeah.
One other thing that I wanted to bring up as an aside was that I think that we could use some more trash cans at Pope's Pond within the entrances. Like, I realize that there's some concern about people driving up and dropping trash off, but right now, when the guys come to take the trash out, they leave big ruts and they're creating a real erosion problem. And I feel like if we just pull the trash cans away from the bridge a little bit and stick them next to the like in between a little bit more, that it might be a good idea, and get one at each entrance. Right now there's 3 entrances to the conservation area, and I'm wondering if maybe we could talk about getting a couple new ones and moving the existing one.
Who empties them now? Is it DPW?
I think.
Is it?
Chef is DPW Department.
Or Park Department? Okay.
Someone to talk to is Sustainable Milton is actively trying to promote the distribution of recycle bins along with all the parks' trash cans. And they've had an ongoing discussion with DPW, I believe, about getting that to happen, and maybe talking to them about
Got it.
incorporating that in their discussion might be worthwhile.
Okay. So what's my next step in terms of going back to the Northeastern people now, and in terms of the Conservation Commission and the town of Milton? And
So, from my perspective, I think you should propose to them that they develop a design strategy, not a contest, but like a studio or a contest or something like that gets as many different ideas, gets student brain working, and then kind of gives you an opportunity to bring in ideas that you didn't have before, and then from that to either select a couple or one, if something jumps out, get that price so you know where you're kind of going. And then you will have vetted a whole bunch of different ideas. You'll come together with something that's stronger, and then you'll know what kind of things you need to bring in terms of contractors, in terms of kind of impact on the ground, in terms of cost, all those kinds of things. And once you have that, then you can actually start to, as you say, putting the cart before the horse is a good thing, because then you're actually out there with something. You've got a lot of input in terms of design side. Maybe it's not finalized, but it gets you going in a direction that you can talk about. Yeah.
And then I'm assuming you'd eventually want to
You would eventually have to
have
come
them
back.
come in and present it to you.
Yes, and that would be a notice of intent.
Yeah.
And if you want to get a jump start on that, DCR put in a bridge from the Ryan Playground on the Boston side over to the area in Milton, right behind Capon Street. And you could look at that notice of intent. Not in terms of necessarily the design of the bridge, but rather in how the construction plan works, and how you have to be careful about where you put equipment, where you store equipment. Because if you look at their notice of intent in our order of conditions, you'll see what needs to be done. It's pretty basic.
Okay.
I mean, you don't want giant construction vehicles, cutting down trees and
Yeah.
Right.
creating ruts.
Driving through the park.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that plan is on a magnitude scale larger than what you were talking about here. But if you take that and answer all the same questions, even if they have a set of drawings and you do that with one sheet because of the scale, if you can answer all the questions that were answered by that set of documents, and that's documents are available through the DPW, I want to say that.
Comes to me.
Oh, right to Kathy, yeah.
See you tomorrow, Kathy.
Say, you can get a copy of that and then use that as a roadmap, not for information, not really for,
Okay.
All right. And then, yeah, you will end up coming back in front of us. You end up coming back in front of the planning board, probably. There'll be, I'm not sure who else you'd have to go in front of. The building department.
Park Department?
Parks Department, probably, too.
And probably the selectmen.
Right.
Probably the selectmen.
All right.
All right, but I don't expect a lot of resistance. I mean, it sounds like a great idea.
Okay. Well, thanks a lot for,
Before you go, are there any questions or comments from members of the public or abutters? Just checking that I think you're all set.
I do have a couple of comments, aside from the fact that the location is really a very, very good one based upon our site walk and a lot of the attendant problems we identified, one of which was significant encroachment on the Post Pond property by some of the abutters.
All right.
And we discussed earlier the possibility of having the property surveyed from Canton Avenue along Blue Hills Parkway to reaffirm the boundaries of the property. And I think that would probably be something not only that we wanted to do, but it would probably be very advantageous for the town to get that done.
Right.
Just be supportive of your project.
well, and just FYI, they've continued to do it.
Encroach.
Well, it depends on what you call encroaching. It's more like dumping. You know,
It's encroachment.
Yeah, the piles of debris are
Yep.
terrible. It's really terrible.
We don't want that, and maybe we could follow up. But there are several uncertainties about property lines, and we really need to get that
That is
resolved.
true. That's correct. And maybe, would that be town engineer? Any surveying? No? They do not.
We've asked them when this whole thing came about to survey, and they're not that type of engineers. We would have to hire a company
Right.
to survey.
All right. Well, you might want to ask the Northeastern folks if they have, another group that would be interested in doing some surveying work.
I will.
Because I think that is an important point, and it keeps that corridor that runs on the Blue Hill Parkway side of the pond, it keeps that open and enjoyable for the public.
Agreed.
All right, so we salute you for doing what you're doing.
Thanks, guys.
And
Appreciate
back
it.
to us for support. Thank you. All right, next on the agenda is number 3, order of conditions, 118 Forbes Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Bob Shepard. I represent the town of the 22. installing a funicular that was approved by this committee and about 40 other committees. One of the requirements of the order of conditions was to present to you a plan of the work that would be done, and we've submitted that to you, and we're wondering if you had any questions or it met your needs. Also, we at the top of the hill, we have the meadow that we created at your suggestion of the required size.
I did look at the plan, and I'll defer. It looked good to me, but I'm not the expert. I'll defer it to Ingrid and others. But I did have a question, because when we were talking initially, and during the several hearings that we had, I thought that Sandy Will had agreed to allow you to plant some trees, some cover trees, for the base on his property. And I know that he wasn't going to maintain them necessarily or take responsibility, but I didn't see anything on the landscaping plan that referenced those trees.
We didn't want to put anything on the landscaping plan for his property, but we believe that that will occur and will be satisfactory to him.
All right, now, I can't remember, and I should remember. Is that part of the order conditions? Yeah, you know, Shelley, I can't
I don't
remember.
think so. But we discussed screening,
Yes.
right?
Plantings,
Right, and so that's certainly a part of the program. I've kept him abreast of, what we're doing, and so I think we're, it's all very congenial.
And that was my understanding, and we certainly didn't want to take a position to,
Yes.
haul him in involuntarily.
Oh, don't do
to this.
that.
But my understanding at the time was that he was supportive of some screening
Yes.
trees in that area.
Yes.
For the process.
All right. Any questions, thoughts? Ingrid, did you have any thoughts on the selection of
I think it's fine.
plants?
Excellent.
And the 5 trees are the 5 red cedar? Is that right? 5?
Yes, eastern red cedar.
Yes. And so I'm just counting the circles, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I think I can spot them, and some of them are on the right side, that is the correct side, for screening from Milton Village, like from 88 Wharf Street, from that direction, looking that way, which I think was important. And that would be the same area that we were hoping to see some additional plantings on the Sandy Will side of the property line.
That's on Sandy Will side.
I'm not an expert of any sort in terms of plantings, and I guess when I was flipping through what you submitted, I was impressed by the colors, but I was also concerned that are all the plants that you're proposing to put in colors? Is this going to become a stripe of color going up the hill? I mean, seriously,
And they all bloom at different times.
They all bloom at different times, and there are other ones around, so there's nothing new being introduced, right?
This is for the meadow as well.
That's
Oh, it is for the meadow.
For the meadow,
Oh, okay.
yes. And the thinking was for the meadow, which
Yep.
is at the top, is to have it be as attractive as possible, as well as attracting bees and butterflies, and so they like color.
Yeah, no, I'm not opposed to
No,
color. I
no,
just
just-
didn't, I was afraid,
Oh,
there
no,
are
no,
things
no.
along
The
the
swap.
vernacular path.
No, right, I think the conversations
good.
we've had
Yeah.
over quite some time is to keep it as subtle, as quiet,
Yeah.
de minimis.
The other thing is on the chart, it indicates what season they bloom, so that under each of the plants, it's indicative of whether it's April, May, and June, or November.
And your comments about the mowing was very, very apt. And for the retention and regrowth. And that would be annualized, I'm assuming, is that correct? Correct. Beautiful.
Any other comments or questions from commissioners? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question and would like to make a comment? Seeing none, this may this is part of the original order of conditions, and we submitted this for our approval, and I think we could probably take a vote to see whether or not people are in support of this landscaping plan.
So moved.
To accept it?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Landscaping
very
plan is
much.
accepted.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
If I could just add a final note, too, we're planning on starting some of that work now in the off-season, as far as some of the site preparation and so on. So with this approval, some of the pruning and the beginning of the clearing for the funicular will begin. So just with the approval, it sets the stage for us to proceed and go forward.
Right.
Yes, no, we appreciate that.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is number 4, which is 151 Woodland Road. Good evening and welcome.
Good evening. My name is Robert Hannigan. I'm the engineer for 151 Woodland Road. I thought Paul was going to be here tonight, but
He's not.
apparently not. At least not yet.
You're on your own. If memory serves, I think at our previous meeting, there were suggested changes, and the issue was whether or not the changes were significant, which would require a new notice of intent, or if they were deemed insignificant, and we could revise the original order of conditions by vote.
Right, I watched the broadcast a couple of times.
Couple of times.
Sometimes.
Couldn't sleep, huh? Okay.
The plan that you had seen, Paul had presented prior, has changed a little bit. There's a little addition.
This again? It's changed again.
Oh, thank you. What they did, what he did is he added the buyer's, oops, let me get you. The buyer's added a pool in the back. They just said there's too many plans.
So that's a significant addition in terms of impervious surface.
Yes, and also I prepared a sheet with listing 3 of the different plans and also some items that you had discussed. One was the difference in area of the footprint, and the previous one with the order of conditions was 2,575 square feet.
I'm sorry, say that again?
It's on there.
2575? Oh, okay.
2,575 square feet, and the current one without the pool is, the footprint is 3,275. The landscape walls on the OOC plan were 75 feet long, and on the current plan is 165 feet. The current proposal shows the 2 11-foot wide driveways separated by a planting area. That would eliminate any concerns that you had about the potential new crossing for 167, Joe Delaney's lot. And what I had done was I had, hearing that the plan had not been recorded, the easement plan, I grabbed the easement plan, brought it up to the gentleman, and had it recorded.
Oh, great, thank you.
That is in fact
Okay, good, thank you.
far as the first item,
Will this change, Mark?
I'm sorry?
We've got, and this is what I expected, that the easement is shown crossing into the Delaney lot. But now that you've designed and proposed a new two 11-foot wide driveways with a 4-foot
Right,
in
right.
between,
Yeah,
is that easement sufficient to
yes, it is.
accommodate
Yes,
both of them?
yes, yeah.
Well, will it change the easement?
Will not change the easement, yeah. That was one of the things that Paul had said he didn't record the easement because he felt that there might be a change to it. I was able to fit the two driveways in within the easement width. I can't remember what the easement width is. It's probably 22, it's probably maybe 28, 30 feet wide. So they all fit within the easement anyway, the two 11-foot driveways. So that is the easement plan that you had before you, that we had prepared for recording, and it just hadn't been recorded at the time of the last meeting. As regards to, should we keep going, or?
Yes, please.
As regards to you had talked about, and there is an increase in the footprint impervious area. I don't think there was a great deal of discussion about impervious area prior, primarily because of the site conditions. As you recall, there's a lot of ledge there. There's a shallow ledge, so the previous plan that was approved and the order of conditions that was issued under didn't have any specific recharge. It was our feeling, it still is our feeling that whatever runoff will flow directly into the two wetlands areas, pretty much stay on site. So
How much, what I'm looking for is the 100-foot line from the, it says IVW. It's the ECR line, I think, by Brad Holmes, but I'm having trouble locating.
IW.
Is it IVW?
Yeah, I didn't show that on the new plan, the 100-foot line. I did show it on a, actually I did.
We did.
The one that's number,
John?
yeah, that's number 3. Maybe you don't have the one that's.
I've got 11/28/17.
Yeah, this is the 100-foot from
here.
From there.
Right. No, I'm looking at the pool.
This is the 100-foot line, right here.
Oh, this is it here. Okay.
Yeah, so the activity, the whole lot is primarily in the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah.
And both 100-foot lines overlap, so there's really no space that isn't really within the 100-foot buffer. So the other issue was you had questioned the length of the walls, the landscape walls. I personally think it's kind of a benefit, and one of the reasons why is I always remember when Craig was on the commission, he always used to like to have us define the 25-foot non-disturb zone. So these particular walls are a little bit upland of the 25-foot non-disturb zone, so they're pretty much would define the 25-foot non-disturb zone, both for the rear yard and any grading in the front yard. One benefit of this plan over the previously approved plan is the side entry garage. The proposed driveway is further from the main wetlands, and it's away from the front yard of the new footprint.
Can you take me back to the previous plan, the approved plan for it's a smaller footprint and it's differently configured, but I thought we had some kind of runoff roof runoff, catch basins, or underground. So didn't we?
I didn't, I tried to pull out all the plans, and I didn't see that on the,
I don't recall it either, John.
Okay. Well, you know, I'm just kind of ballparking, but the landscape wall went from 75 feet to 165 feet, which is an increase of about 115%. Is that the older or the new one?
that's the old one, right. I didn't make enough copies of this plan for everyone, but that's the old one. Yeah, this is the one that the order of conditions was. And as I said, you know, I almost see it as, and perhaps you don't, as a benefit, because it kind of delineates what is usable area.
Well, I had an issue before with the contours coming off the front of the house down into the wetland across the front.
Right, the existing ones.
So the idea of putting the contours were too aggressive, or to make them shallow enough to be reasonable, they got really aggressive at the wetland. The idea of putting in a wall, to my way of thinking, is not a bad thing.
Okay.
Right? Make a solid transition, deal with it there, and then let the rest of it downhill not be unaffected.
Right.
Yeah.
Where's the 25-foot
That's the
line?
X, isn't it? The circle of this line with the X's? That is all the 25 foot.
Right, 25 is here for the front
It
wetlands.
parallels the wall in the front.
Yeah, and then it's here for this wetlands.
That's the 25-foot or a limit of work?
Both. Well, I mean, the limit of work is just outside the 25-foot, so the limit of work is there.
Okay.
And what are you showing in terms of grade changes?
In the front? It's kind of a...
It's tough to see in general, but both around the pool and in front.
Yeah, there'd be very slight grade changes there. That was kind of a last minute, the pool, kind of a last minute addition. So there may be need for a little bit of a grading in there, but essentially that originally proposed was 191 at the end of the wall, and then 193 at the back of the garage, or actually it'd be lower than that because the slab is 192.5. So
The back of the garage, I'm looking at the new one, looks like 195.
193. That's a 3, 193. Actually, the 193 at the left-hand corner of the garage cuts back into the retaining wall on Joe Delaney's property. So it's
Clearer on this, too.
it'd be 192.5 or less. So
Actually, looks like the 198.
This is that's a 3.
And so again, going back to the pool, what sort of depth are you talking
It's like a
about?
5 to me.
How deep is the pool going to be?
it would be standard pool with,
Does that look
I
like
don't
a
know,
5?
maybe an 8-foot, diving area and a
What's
shallow
the
area.
depth to bedrock? You said there's very shallow bedrock there?
It varies from different parts of the site.
The
comment was this
We don't know.
Oh, okay.
That's one, it looks like 195?
Yeah, no, it goes into the wall. There's a wall right there on Joe's property.
Impervious surface.
So
So you're just talking about it?
right.
Okay.
It varies. A lot of places it's exposed. We didn't do any test pits, but it's real shallow.
So
This is the high side, that's the low side, they're dropping that.
do you anticipate running into issues with bedrock removal to install the pool?
192 on the other side.
Quite possibly. Typically, what they these days they chip them rather than blast.
Okay.
They're doing unit condo project in Cohasset Center, and there was a lot of ledge, and they chipped the whole thing. They have a regulation in Cohasset you can't blast.
And given the proximity to the wetland there, I think we'd want to see a little bit more in terms of means and methods before how you propose to set up any equipment or accomplish the work, given that you're in such a constrained area.
Primarily for the removal of the ledge?
Ledge and excavation in general.
Okay.
And you're talking about getting very, you're right up to the 25. And so it's typically pretty large machines that are necessary to do that kind of work.
Okay, we can provide that. The 167 Woodland Road, people in that property own this lot, so commission has a provision that you can't park any vehicles overnight within the 100-foot buffer, so they'd probably make arrangements with the Delaney's for that.
Bob, I hope you know that I'm not a form of a substance person, but the changes here seem to be fairly significant. You're going from 2575 to 3275, which is it's about a 28% increase. The landscape wall is going from 75 to 165, which is, I don't know, 115, 120% increase. You're adding a swimming pool with, I don't know what the square footage of impervious surface is, but it's significant. Why is this a minor revision? Or how is this a minor revision? Because the standards for us is that if it's a minor revision, then we can revise the original order of conditions. But if it's not a minor revision, then you have to file another notice of intent. And please understand me, I'm not trying to throw form at you.
No, I think, and Paul expressed that in the previous hearing, that I think the reason he came to you was with the modifications, the original modifications, and he said, that he understood, and essentially it's your judgment call as to whether it seems to me it's a single-family residence prior than it is now. Granted, there's a pool added. As I mentioned, the location of the landscape retaining walls, and then shifting the driveway, I think, is a benefit. And then also, having the two driveways in the existing easement where the existing driveway is now. So it's your determination.
Well, one of my concerns is, and I'm not looking for controversy, but if it's a revision, there's no new notice to abutters. If it's a new notice of intent, the law requires that they be given notice. My gut reaction is these are significant changes in terms of the size of the house. There's some change in the location. It may well be a betterment from our perspective, but from sort of the open meeting law perspective and notice to abutters,
I think
it really is different.
Just the pool alone, I think, would justify a new notice.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Might I suggest, rather than filing a new notice, if we continue and then notify abutters of the changes, would you consider that?
Is that for like the $237 saving or something? This is a major product. This is going to be an expensive house. And I don't think the filing fee of $237 is prohibitive.
If that's the feeling of the commission, then...
It's mine, but...
Yes.
I just think that this would require more than a minor change to the order of conditions. But that, I'm looking to see if there are other views here. Do you have a...
I agree. I think the comment on the pool is the...
Yeah, I agree. The pool alone, I think, would justify it.
All right.
But as I also agree that there are some things on this that I see as betterment, like we talk about the walls. I see that as a betterment to what we're trying to do in terms of delineation and control. The fact that the house grew by, what, 50% or something like that, or 28%. I think that warrants more discussion.
Right. Are there comments or questions from either abutters or members of the public? Seeing none, I don't, I'm not sure what the procedural step would be, but my suggestion is that this is more than a minor revision, and if we make that determination by a vote, then that would require another notice of intent, or a new notice of intent. Is there a sense of, I mean, I think there's a consensus here
Deny
that
the
it would...
proposed change.
What's that?
Deny the proposed change.
Right. And request or require a new notice of intent. All right, is that a motion from somebody?
Question,
Yes.
is there, if you're denied, say, with Board of Appeals, you're prohibited from coming back with a similar proposal for a certain period of time, is that the case with a notice?
I don't believe it is. I believe that the determination that it's not a minor revision allows you to file a new notice of intent.
All right.
Unless you want to proceed with the original plan.
Oh, sure.
No, I think there's a buyer that's interested in this particular house. Paul had built it up on Low Estate, and they liked it, and they wanted the pool as well, so. All right.
So a quick question. So in terms of the new notice of intent, is it possible to accelerate the review process based on accepting the prior delineation? So does...
Oh, I think we're within the 3 years of that delineation.
Right, so
The
the whole
delineation.
prior delineation review and all of that is all still in play.
Oh,
And
I
then
hope
therefore- But so you're not talking about this isn't a soup to nuts review.
It's a
This is
reassessment of the
This is a
stormwater
reassessment
standards.
of the scope, right?
We've been on this site how many times?
Yes.
3 times.
We've been there a few times.
Yeah. Okay.
So I would not need a refresher course.
Right.
Right, and this is not interposed for delay. I'm just, I think
Maybe a new member, I don't think he's been on, have you been on the site? Maybe you could take a walk.
I can if you want.
No, if you want, then
Happy to
let me
take
know. And I
a
can,
trip by. I see a lot by the plan.
All right, then, is there a motion to deny this as a minor revision?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thanks. We'll expect something from you, and we'll endeavor not to delay.
Yes. Okay.
Delay you. All right. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
All right, next on the agenda is number 5, request for certificate of compliance, 1581 Canton Avenue. Anybody for 1581? Kathy, do you know anything about this?
I do not. Other than they did submit a stamp letter, and this was on last month's agenda. And I believe it's stamped plan.
I don't think that we had anything in our packet for this one.
It was in last month's package.
Oh, okay. That one I don't have with me. Does anybody have it? Do you have it, Kathy?
I think I did.
Honestly, press this.
This is the house with a significant drop-off on one side. I think that the three of us were there. Ingrid, I thought you were present. That's the house, the line goes through the middle. That's not the house, that's the garage.
Oh, yes, in the
But
back.
there's a huge drop-off.
Canton Avenue.
The elevation
Yeah,
change.
we were there.
Right.
Yep.
And I thought we had asked them to move the house. I'm sorry, not the house, the garage.
Yeah.
In terms of,
Way.
yes. Although it may have been away the other way, to move it.
These were steep on this side.
Yes, it's steep on both sides. Let me just see what we have here.
But I think it was to move it away from this side.
Yeah.
The grade is not as steep, but it was better.
I don't recall. I remember the conversation. I
Yeah.
don't recall.
I just want to see the approved plan. That's the as-built. Kathy, do you know if you generally mark them as approved, don't you?
Yes. Oh, it should have the date on all the conditions, or all the conditions.
To the front. Those are just the house plans, not this one.
Yeah, they came back to us. We were okay.
I didn't think there was any real issues.
No, I don't think there were.
I think this was to be removed. This was the revised plan. 22nd?
What's the date
This
on
is
that?
as-built, right?
That's the as-built.
Right. This was issued on the 23rd.
Right, that's the 22nd, so this,
It's kind of a spit of land that sticks out. It's towers are around, everything around
Every
it.
time I drove by it, I thought, did they go to the commission?
And they came back before us, too.
Yeah.
This is on 21.
wait a minute, this is right across the street, isn't it?
Yeah, this is
These
the
are
house.
opposite sides of the street.
This isn't the house you're thinking about, the one that has the pretty tower.
Yeah.
This is the one that they just did a piece of the house. Remember, they were going to remove it,
Yes,
remove the closed porch?
right, and Foster Brook. Wait a minute, what's the number on that?
This is
Get
1580.
better about asking people to post.
This is 1581.
Wrong address.
We got the wrong address. One is 1580 and the other is 1581. It's right across the street.
No, but I think the original address is 1580 for this picture. This isn't the house you're thinking about.
Yeah, but this
No,
isn't,
this
isn't the same as that.
Yeah, you're right, it's not. That's the Ballston Brook, it's right across the street.
Correct.
But they're both in the same file. Oh, how did that happen? So which one is it? I remember both houses.
Yeah.
Actually, and that was, they were actually pulling the house back from Ballston Brook, if it's 1580.
1581 was the garage that they changed.
Correct. And that's, but they're both in the same file. You're absolutely correct. So- Right. Yeah, and it was.
Okay,
So did
this
they
is the wrong
remove
folder.
it? That's across the street, but
Across
it's
the street.
1580.
Right, not 1581.
So did they we came in the driveway here, right? And there was a very old section of the house. Weren't they removing it? No, that's the wrong one.
No, this was just the garage.
Yeah.
This one was
This
just
is
the garage.
just the garage.
Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah, so,
That's one shoulder, but
close.
Well, they're not here anyway.
No, we always, I remember that.
I remember that one, too. But you're saying that's not the one?
No.
no.
It's the other.
No, this is the one, actually. The map that I just showed you is 1581, which is right across the street.
What's the one we're talking about? 1581.
It's on the Balsam Brook side.
1581.
It's 1581.
This
Which is this one.
this is 1581, John.
Which is
Okay,
what we're
so
talking about.
that's the right one.
Right.
We got two of
That's
them.
the wrong folder.
Okay. Do we have another one?
No. I grabbed the wrong folder.
Oh, okay.
I think that's what happened.
Well, they're not here, so it's okay. Oh, this one's right there.
All right, next on the agenda is a certificate of compliance for 610 Brush Hill Road.
I should have stayed.
Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Robert Hannigan, and I'm representing the owners of 610 Brush Hill Road. There are a few things that needed to be addressed with the certificate of compliance request. I think the main thing was, well,
I
first,
have to recuse myself on this one.
Okay.
two things was the location of the play area in the backyard. I didn't do that. I haven't prepared an updated plan. The second one was where the outdoor lights were, if they were within the 100-foot buffer zone or not. That will be reflected on the plan. I think the main one was, I think at the time, Michael was supposed to perhaps try and talk to the owner downstream. Did you get a chance to?
Totally forgot.
So,
True.
do you think you might get a chance between?
I can. Yep.
Okay. If not, let me know, and I'll talk to him. Just for general discussion, the issue was when they put in a pool, someone else had done the plan, but when they put in the pool and the retaining wall, part of the order conditions was to extend the level spreader that collected runoff from Perkins Lane. So I guess, it would see how Mr. Haggerty was impacted with respect to that. That was one of the issues, so therefore, we should probably continue to the next meeting. And if...
What's the date of that?
If you get a chance, let me know.
Actually, I'll go out, I'll make a concerted effort. Yeah.
Good.
December
I
12th.
forgot to, I had to ask Kathy.
I'm going back, I'm reaching back into history, but I know when we did an inspection post-development of the pool, there were some outflow pipes in the retaining wall, but I don't...
We did a second site walk on that, that
was resolved.
Yeah.
Okay.
As well as the
Chemical toilets?
and the pervious material
Yep, okay.
between the stones. The only two things were the new playhouse that was added in the
Right.
back and its location, and then the lighting outside the...
And the impact of the guy downstream, Mr. Haggerty.
Correct, okay, so that's the only thing left is the... Correct. Mr. Haggerty. The other issue, I know right with a retaining wall on the Blue Hill Ave side of the property, right when the paved driveway, it sort of ends right near the, it doesn't actually end, because you can actually follow it through all the way to Blue Hill Avenue. But there was a new berm constructed there, and I think it was done appropriately. But there's a catch basin right sort of across the driveway from the end of the retaining
Yeah,
wall.
the original design was to have the trench drain across Perkins Lane, flowing into the catch basin, deep sump catch basin, and then into a drain manhole at the head of the level spreader.
Yes.
So that was all under the original plan. The only modification when they put in the pool was to extend the level spreader.
Right, and that was my understanding. My real question relates to another piece of property, the development of, is it 539 Blue Hill Avenue?
593.
593. And I didn't know if there was any impact on the water flowing from Brush Hill Road down Perkins Lane by the new properties.
No, I mean, that's all the other side of Perkins Lane and downhill from pretty much Perkins Lane in this site.
Right.
So, there's nothing that impacts the wetlands on the Adams property, 610 Brush Hill Road.
So the only real issue is the level spreader that adjoins the Haggerty property.
Yes. Well,
Right. The impact.
the impacts, yeah.
The impact.
Yeah. And I'm not sure. I think the level spreader was added to attenuate the flow into the wetlands.
Yes.
Take it away from flowing down and washing out Perkins Lane. I think that was one of the issues that they had prior.
Right.
So it's kind of a trade-off, It was more...
No, I understand that, and I didn't mean to put you into a conflict situation, because I know you've got the other downstream folks as well.
Right.
I just didn't know if there was any noticeable impact at sort of at the lower end of Perkins Lane.
No.
Okay.
No. Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Fair enough. So that's continued until, what's the date in December?
12th.
The 12th. December 12th. Is that
Great,
cool?
thanks.
All right, good. Thanks, Bob. All right, next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 45 Woodside Drive. Hi, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. For the record, Terry McGovern from Sandeck and Taylor Engineers representing the Woodside Drive, Mr. Oregon. I'm basically here to answer any questions that the commission may have, but we've submitted recently an as-built plan. This property, the orders of conditions were issued just about exactly 5 years ago now. And as often happens, more often than you may think with some of these, property owners get their orders of conditions, complete their work, happily go about their lives, and then when they decide to sell the property, put it on the market, they suddenly realize, wait a minute, there's something we forgot to do. What is it? Certificate of compliance. So we were asked to go up and do the as-built site plan. We've submitted copies of that to the commission, along with a letter saying that the work that was done is in fact substantially in completion with the orders of conditions. I have some pictures of the rear yard that I'll be happy to submit to the commission. I believe would be helpful because there are only two minor changes in the construction that we can see out there. And the site is stabilized. There is adequate vegetation in the backyard. There's no evidence of scour or erosion in any areas. There are 4 dry wells. 2 of them are actually coupled together because they hit a large boulder near the front left corner of the house. So they ran a pipe down and put a larger dry well behind the deck and porch at the rear of the house. The deck area is slightly smaller than was originally proposed, and there is a small paver and stone or stone dust area that runs immediately adjacent to the stone patio, which is about equal to the deck area that was shrunk, kind of a land area. I inspected the dry wells myself. They're clean. No evidence of plant decay or anything getting into them. They all appear to be functioning. In fact, when I was out there, it was almost exactly a month ago, and it was after a heavy period of rain within a few days before they were bone dry. The pictures show the vegetation across the backyard. Some cleffer shrubs were planted that apparently had died back in there, and the landscaper went back in and put some of those shrubs back in. None of the matured trees had disturbed. The area appears to be pretty clean. There's no lawn in there. Some of the invasives were removed, but it appears to be in pretty good shape. No evidence of any erosion or anything into that area. No expansion beyond any no disturbed setbacks.
Two questions.
Yeah.
What's the size difference? Can you quantify? The deck is smaller. By how much? The patio is larger. By how much?
Deck is approximately 125 square feet smaller. Because on our as-built plan, and again, the pictures are kind of helpful, the paver part, we've kind of shown a little line that arcs around kind of at the edge. It's about 5 feet wide. It's about the same area, the infill where the little fire pit is. There's actually a little bit of pervious area where the stairs are. There's a little mulch bed next to it that would have been decked previous to that. It's pretty close to an even trade-off in terms of area, maybe within a couple of square feet.
Okay, thanks. And the other thing is that the O&M plan it purports to bind the future homeowner, but is that O&M plan filed with the Registry of Deeds?
No, it isn't. I believe that would be pending the closing on the property.
Well, if it's not filed, then why would the new owner file it? It should go with the property. And I'm reading from your O&M plan. I don't mean you personally, but I believe it says operation and maintenance statement. The current or future landowner is responsible for maintaining each dry well. But if that is not filed with the Registry of Deeds, then the new owner would have no obligation to maintain each dry well.
Well, my experience with these have typically been that it would be filed with the commission. I don't know if this would necessarily be a document that would be filed with the Registry of Deeds. Usually, unlike your orders of conditions or your certificate of compliance, which clears the orders of conditions off the kind of off the record of title. I haven't seen, unless it has been a specific condition within the orders, I haven't seen it necessarily be. Best analogy is if you have a subdivision approval or something.
Oh, I know what the analogy. I know what the analogy is, but it's your document that says that it binds. I quoted from your document, the first line. So if it purports to bind the future owner and is not filed with the Registry of Deeds, it won't bind the future owner.
Well, and I guess my answer, not being privy to the closing, would be that it would occur as part of the closing documents.
The 45.
We can certainly have the owner submit proof to the commission that it's been recorded. I don't know, unfortunately, because Mr. Lorgan's out of state, I don't know, what, I believe their closing has been postponed for the time being.
I just didn't know if it was part of the original order, and to be honest, I don't remember this one specifically.
Let's see if I have the order right here. I actually have a copy of it here.
special conditions, we've got 43, there shall be no removal of the white pine trees, trimming of the trees shall be allowed. That appears to be in compliance with the photographs that you just showed to us. The applicant shall maintain the plethora shrubs, and I know you address that, and then it says the applicant shall remove invasive vines. So I actually don't see anything here that would require the O&M plan to bind the future owner, but that's what it says. So I was just reacting to the document that you submitted. Does anybody have any feeling on that? I mean, we typically don't require that maintenance of a dry well would go to the new owner. It would behoove them to do it, right? Yeah, probably.
Well, I guess it comes down to, do you want someone to tell you every 3 to 5 years that the dry wells are still in working condition? It's not part of the original orders. We've looked at them and probably...
No, the only reason we'd want it to run with the land, and I don't have a specific, I mean, it was 5 years ago, in 2012, 11/1/2012. The only reason would be that if the dry wells, if they failed for some reason, if it impacted somebody else. That's why I looked back at the order of conditions, but it's not here. So I'm less concerned because it's not here. Anybody have any concerns with that? Yes, no?
Well, I think it should be. I mean, but as you say, it wasn't. We didn't include it.
Right. They sort of voluntarily did it, and that's what the document actually says, which is good. So shall we request that they record that with the registry, or not?
But it wasn't our original. We didn't originally cover it.
That's correct.
So you're asking them to do it now?
I'm asking if you would...
I don't think we should modify the order of conditions.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I don't either. I'm right. I'm just asking. That was a real question. I wasn't trying to...
Is it a leading question? No.
No, it was an honest God. What do you think? That's why I looked at this, and it's not in the special conditions that it be recorded. I mean, the order of conditions typically is, but not the O&M plan part of it. Like for larger commercial projects, we always have the O&M plan recorded, so it binds future owners.
Right.
But that's sort of off-site, and the commercial projects are larger and impacts abutters and members of the public.
And the only way to get it to actually happen is to have it recorded. You can't just ask them to provide them the new owner with a copy of it, because
That's
then
correct.
that's their win.
I was just, everybody comfortable then with not requiring the recording?
Yeah. I sort of think it's beyond our scope.
In this case,
It seems excessive. Yeah.
All right. So then, is there a motion to, well, first of all, any abutters or members of the public that have a question? Hearing none, is there a motion to issue an order of conditions based upon our, the stamp plan? Certificate of compliance, sorry.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor? Good.
Thank you.
Good to go.
Next
Thank you
time
very
I'll
much.
bring the attorney hat as well. Thank you.
All right, thanks.
Maybe you don't want to do that.
All right, next on the agenda is enforcement order, 123 Granite Avenue. Anybody appearing for that?
But I do think we should put that into a sidewalk.
Yes, I do too. And the questions that I had in terms of the letter, or the email received, I guess back in October, is this a commercial venture?
It's American Heritage Post.
No, I know what it is, but was it a commercial venture? Were they renting the property to
That I
somebody else?
don't know.
I mean, the pictures are not good.
Right, yeah.
So let's put that on our sidewalk and
Okay, and when we do a sidewalk?
Saturday,
I cannot make it on Saturday.
the next Saturday?
The next one's at 9.
Right. That was the 9th, so.
I was wondering the same thing.
Sorry, I'll avert my eyes. How about the 9th?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good.
Fine with me.
All right, good.
The question I had on this, John, was whether or not we had any knowledge that indeed the containers are indeed off the property, because they said they would be off by the end of October.
Yes, yeah,
They're gone.
but there's other debris on the property.
Oh, yeah, it shows in the photos.
Right.
Not pretty.
That's what-
So, are these your photographs?
They were taken by one of the crew from DPW when I asked them to take pictures of the containers.
Oh, okay.
So the containers are gone, but everything else is there.
Correct. On the day of the photos, but I think we should just see how close they are to the wetlands.
Sidewalk.
All right, so 8 o'clock, and we may rearrange the schedule, but right now, 8 o'clock on Saturday, December 9th. All right, next on the agenda is enforcement order 531 Elliott Street. Is anyone here from Elliott Street? The report on that was that it didn't look like the homeowner was making much progress in terms of getting some kind of a design plan as to how to stabilize the wall.
And there was no top when I drove by, so I think we should do a sidewalk.
Okay. But I thought in addition to not having a top, the pile of fill had been spread,
Correct.
but that's what we told them not to do. So if you talk about jumping from the frying pan to the fire. So that'll be number 2, sidewalk? Okay. Okay, next on the agenda is notice of intent, 37 Robbins Street. Anyone here for, you have that? 37 Robbins? Thanks.
You thought you were done.
Go to the street to the sidewalk, too.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes with Environmental Consulting and Restoration. Along with me, Mr. Robert Hennigan. We're here for the property located at 37 Robbins Street. The applicant, Eugene, is here as well, Eugene Barros. The applicant has filed this project as a notice of intent. I'll take the mic, I guess, and point out the site here. We filed the notice of intent for an undeveloped lot on Robbins Street. It's outlined here in orange. There are no vegetated wetland resource areas on site. However, it is within close proximity to the Trout Brook. The Trout Brook is fairly well-defined, probably historically ditched at one time, but it's a well-defined bank of a USGS map perennial stream, so therefore it has a 200-foot riverfront area associated with it. We've located the 200-foot and 100-foot riverfront area to the stream. There's also...
Brad, let me ask you a question. What about across the street?
Yeah, there is a wetland further across the street as well.
How far do you know, ballpark? I know it's not on there with measurements.
It starts about in this region because it's the stream flows a little bit in this direction. I did flag that edge. It comes in like this and then down. So it's a decent distance away.
Decent as in more than 100 feet, or do you know?
Bob, did you?
Yes, yeah. I didn't locate them, but I didn't work on the property across the street, further down the vacant lot.
44.
Straddles Trout Brook. And that area of the, that area rises in elevation
It comes up, so you still have this residence here, a lot before you get to our lot. So if you can envision, this stream's hitting this way, the wetland associated with the stream has got at least a lot before it gets over to this distance. So as I remember flagging it, yes, it's more than 100 feet away visually. If we have to get some additional data on that's no problem, we can do that.
All right. We've got about 3 different plans for that other lot that I think, Bob, you were there. So we're pretty familiar with across the street. And I just wanted to make sure that it might depend upon which line you take. We were mostly on the west side?
On the north side. On the north side was the property that was questioned with. The 3 lines were questioned.
That was 44
On the south
Rollins.
side, the wetlands were better defined, and as I said, the topography rose from Troutbrook towards Canton Ave. So I concur with Brad that the wetlands themselves are greater than 100 feet from.
I did put fresh flags out in that area. And again, it was further down, and then it curved back and around, but it wasn't any from what I could see, within 100 feet. But I did put fresh flags out.
Okay.
There's a well-defined bordering vegetated wetland here along the edge of a maintained yard and lawn that comes into an area that isn't maintained. There's another property here with another single-family residential property here with yard. This is a little section of wetland that's been allowed to exist in amongst these yards. So the bordering vegetated wetland here outlined in green with the 100-foot buffer zone shown here in red. The proposed project at the site consists of a new single-family residence. And due to the location, we're outside the buffer zone with the work. However, we're inside the 200-foot riverfront area. There isn't a FEMA flood zone here, so we don't have a flood zone requirement that we have to worry about, but we do have to ensure, even though we're outside the 100-foot buffer zone, we have to ensure that we comply with the river protection regulations. And that, for a new development, we have to meet the 10.58, the no significant adverse impact of the river's regulations. And what that requires is that you do a riverfront alternatives analysis and that you comply with the no significant adverse impact. In the notice of intent, I have prepared and submitted a riverfront alternatives analysis and also complied with each standard of the performance standards for the river's regulations. And in general, we can go through those if you'd like, because it's all written down. But in general, what we're held to is that we need to be under, we can't exceed 5,000 square feet of disturbance within the riverfront for a new construction. So what we've designed here, as you'll see, the majority, say 75% or so of the project is located within that outer portion of the riverfront. We've kept it so that the house and yard area is up just at 5,000 square feet. You'll see that the portion of the house, the southern portion of the house and the driveway is outside the riverfront. And due to the zoning requirements, we can't move the project any further outside because the side yard setbacks. However, we were able to design it to comply with that 5,000 square foot standard. The property overall is an upland vegetated area consisting mainly of Norway maples and other non-native vegetation mixed with upland native vegetation. So in general, it's somewhat of a simple project in the sense that all we're dealing with is the 200-foot riverfront area, and in order to comply with that, you have to be under 5,000 square feet to meet that no adverse impact. We've designed the project in accordance with that standard. To take any questions you have.
What's the existing condition of the parcel again?
It's undeveloped. It's basically a forested wooded lot.
And so, what size trees are about?
What size trees are on there? They're mature trees, anywhere from, let's say, saplings or anything 5 inches of diameter up to, I'd say 12 to maybe 16-inch diameter trees at max. There's a lot of Norway maples, as I remember, some hickory, crab apples. It's surrounded by residences. There's residences all to the north, east, and south.
Myers Lane is here. Myers Lane wraps around and connects to Canton Ave, as does Robbins Street.
Are there any, it's described as a single-family home with appurtenances. Are there any other outbuildings here? I don't see them here, but
No, that's
I know
my
that's an
catch-all
old
for,
phrase.
that I protect myself with the appurtenances so that I have a safety valve if I missed a utility line or an electric line or something like that. But no, the idea is that because it's going to connect to the sewer system, we don't need a septic system, so that the only work is the house, the grading, whatever utilities would be in that area, such as an electric line, maybe a water service connection. And then as you'll see, there's not going to be a large yard associated with it because we have to maintain that 5,000 square foot limit.
Are there any questions? Well, obviously, we'll need a site walk.
One more question, not directly related to us. So why isn't the 30-foot rear yard setback parallel to the property line? It looks like a graphic error to me, and I'm wondering, is there something driving that it's not parallel?
I think it is. Perhaps it isn't, but...
Okay, but the intent was that it is?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah.
it's not, but...
In Milton, as far as the front setbacks,
Yep.
where you gain access, it's 25 foot in Residence C.
Yep.
And since you're on two streets, the second one can be 20 feet. So this is 20 feet on Myers Lane. 30-foot rear.
No, I was just wondering if there was some odd condition that was making the setback different or not parallel to the property line.
Connected lines.
Product connected lines, okay.
Yeah, it really doesn't impact because...
Okay. No, I just was curious as to whether something else was driving. Thank you.
The 9th? The site walk? Are you available?
Yes.
Okay. Right, if you stay in touch with Kathy, 'cause she generally figures out the order, but we've got, what, 3?
So far, yes.
All right, are there any abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question to be heard? Yes, sir.
Question and comment.
Sure.
Do I need to be in a microphone somewhere?
Yeah, I think so, but they're movable, so.
Okay, great, thank you. I'm Skip Winery, and I reside at 24 Robin Street, which is directly opposite the subject property. When we moved to Robin Street, across the street, Robin Street, almost 40 years ago, I was curious about the empty lot and was told by a neighbor back then the subject property had been the location of a hat factory. There seems to be no one in living memory who remembers the lot as being anything but empty. Given the size of the trees on the lot, it's likely been many years since any buildings have been on the lot. The only remaining structure is what appears to be a partial stone wall bordering Myers Lane, possibly part of an old building foundation. Hearing the property was being sold, I was concerned that if there had been a hat factory, there was a possibility of the presence of toxic materials. Felt, which was popular for use in the hat industry in the 19th century, was produced by treating animal skins with chemicals containing mercury. Hatters could develop a neurological disease from mercury poisoning, sometimes known as Mad Hatter's disease, which gave rise to the expression, mad as a hatter. Mercury, if present in the subject lot, could possibly be disturbed in the subsoil during construction. Given my concern, I asked Attorney Marion McKettrick to research the lot for me as to its status and its historical use. In Attorney McKettrick's excellent research of the property, records of the property records, a plan was found of the Myers estate dated 1867. In that plan, Lot 5 seems to conform to the size and position of the subject property. I would like to read from Attorney McKettrick's findings. The recorded plan shows several buildings on Lot 5 that would be what I believe to be the subject property, including one next to Robin Street, labeled shops. In the history of Milton from 1640 to 1887 by A.K. Teal, there's description of the property on the west side of Robin Street, just south of the brook, where Ebenezer Tucker long had a tannery. As the date of the book was published, the vats had been filled up within 50 years. The next paragraph describes an extensive business in cabinet making that was carried out by John Myers in a large building since burnt, which stood to the rear of Mrs. Murphy's house on Robin Street. The business may have been located on Lot 5. The possibility that a tannery may have been located in Lot 5 raises the question of toxic residue. Mercury was used in the tanning of hides and could persist in the soil if such business had been located on Lot 5. The cabinet-making business should not have involved the use of any toxic materials. Continuing with Attorney McKettrick's findings, it's impossible to know for sure exactly where the tannery was located, but it would be advisable prior to undertaking construction on Lot 5 to do test borings to eliminate the possibility that toxic substances are present in the soil. If such substances were found, any contaminated soil would have to be removed prior to starting construction. What I would like to ask the committee What I would like to ask of the committee is that an independent environmental company be retained to do test borings in the lot to eliminate the possibility of toxic substances being in the soil. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I have a couple points that I'd like to add to that.
I'd like to directly respond to that. I hate to disagree with Attorney McGettrick. Actually, I did do some research as well. I made a copy of the 1867 plan with Lot 5 outlined, and there are a couple of pages of my Teal history of Milton. And it's pretty clear that in the description that the tannery is on the opposite side of Robin Street and on the south side of Crow Brook. And as Skip had said, that it clearly describes the Myers lot as quite extensive business in cabinet making. It was carried out by John Myers in a large building in Simsboro, which stood in the rear of Mrs. Murphy's house on Robin Street. So I think that there might be a little speculation that this particular lot involved a tannery. Tannery would be over on this particular property. On this particular property, as opposed to here, and I think it's probably a reach to ask that soil samples be done. When I was researching the flatback memories of 2 Grand Ave, I'm not sure, maybe John was the only one that recollection, when John Flatley took over the Skeleton Building, there were a few people objected to it, and one of the members, actually the chairman of the Boston Conservation Commission, who was there, he asked the commission to do an archaeological dig to see what type of ferns seeds were there to see it. So Don Neal, who was chair at the time, said, Steve, or I'm not sure what the guy's name was, he said, how many projects in Boston have you required that particular function? So there was no response. So,
Fern seeds are a little different than mercury, though.
Could I respond?
I just had two pieces before you respond.
Okay, go ahead.
If I could get just a couple quick words in. One is that there's the DEP, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, handles hazardous waste, and if there's a contractor, site contractor encounters hazardous waste on this property or any other property, that's handled by the state under the state regulations. So there is a hazardous waste law and regulations that everybody has to comply with. That's not something that is handled through the Conservation Commissions as far as hazardous waste investigations.
Well, that one I have to disagree with you on.
Okay.
Big time.
Well, I
The
think that
EPA and the Milton Conservation Commission came up with arsenic off of Cape and Road on the banks of the Neponset, and they had to take off the top 8 inches of soil. Now, you're deeply involved in it.
No, you're correct with that. What I'm saying is that the contingency plan, the DEP would go out on site to the 21E program, the Massachusetts Contingency Plan. An investigation would be done to determine hazardous waste. Once the remediation plan was, once it was reported, once there was a remediation plan developed, it would have to come back to the conservation, a project would have to come back to the Conservation Commission and get a permit to do that work. So I'm not saying it would be skipped, I'm just saying it's not handled at in an investigation level through a Conservation Commission. So there's standards for that. But we can just meet to disagree.
For NSTAR. We had a transformer leak. We didn't know what was in it, so we said, test it.
And the other thing is under the rivers protection regulations, if we're going to go down this investigating historic mill complexes or things like that, there's actually an exemption for sites that are historic mill complexes. It's exempt. There's no riverfront standards for that. Just that kind of caught my eye when we talk about rivers and historic mill complexes. But
Does that apply to redevelopment of existing mills?
No, it's just that the sites, if you have a property that was a historic mill complex anywhere, it's exempt. There is no riverfront on that. It's exemption. If you look in if you have the state regulations here, which is continued, so we can go through that, but it's an exemption. If you go through 10.58 number 6 and go through the list, like septic system repairs are exempt, right? Historic mill complexes are exempt. So there's a certain amount of activities in riverfronts that are exempt. And I just throw that out there for your knowledge, but as Bob said, it doesn't feel that this meets that standard, but just a FYI.
First, it doesn't answer the question about the neighborhood or back in the 60s of the hat factory being there. That's still a possibility. You can't assume that the hat factory and the tannery would be one. Secondly, and I couldn't find anything further except to what people told me. Secondly, the area that Bob was talking about is pretty much ledge going down, and then it's a flood area after that. What it was like in 1860, I can't speak to, but I talked to people when I first moved in that used to sled down there, and if there were any pits or whatever, it wouldn't make much sense being so close to the brook at that point. So what I'm suggesting is that maybe Teal just got the wrong side of the street. It's a possibility. I mean, you look at all the references in that book. I'm sure there are some typos in terms of what makes sense. And lastly, there was no Robin Street then. It was called New Lane. Right. So I just wanted to present what I knew and what I felt and leave it up to you folks to make the decision. I just felt that truly the chances are not very great, but the consequences are very great if there is something.
Sounds true. I mean, a chemical analysis is not an expensive proposition.
No.
If the question's been raised, then why not answer it?
I think if you go on a site and you see oil drums or you see things that would lead you to that analysis, then yes, I think at that point, then an investigation would be warranted. I didn't observe anything that would stick out on my mind as a concern for hazardous waste, and I think when you guys walk the site on December 9th, you'll observe what I observed. And take another discussion after that point.
We're talking about a century ago. The lot's been probably empty all that time, since that time.
We're talking about what ifs. I mean, we have 3 residential properties all around that area. It's a residential, development. The what ifs. I mean, I like to say an asteroid could fall out and hit the town hall right now, but we can only deal with the science that we have today.
This is greater than a what if.
So, quick, so in what you had said, it sounded to me like you were counting on the ability of the excavator to notice whether or not the soil was contaminated. And some excavators might have skills to be able to do that, but I wouldn't bet that way. So I think that where I'm leaning would be to say do some borings to get the information, if only to verify that there is no issue. And if there is an issue, then you know what you're into going in, and you have a more realistic understanding of the costs before you get too deep in. So it's actually to your advantage to as much as it is for everyone else, to understand what the scope of the work is.
As well as for the owner.
As well as for the owner. And it being a residential area, from my perspective, because we're talking about something that is historic, the one has nothing to do with the other. And the lack of knowing that if there is an issue there, when the other buildings were built, has no bearing on whether or not, based on the information, that there is some concern, and whether or not there's some ambiguity in the information that was provided, or errors, and that might come to be that there's an error, and there's no issue here. But on the other hand, there's the possibility in some form that there might be something here. We should say, and especially if it's not a significant cost impact, we should say, do this up front and know what you're into, and be able to say flat out, there is no issue here. We've done the borings and it's clean.
What I would say to that is, I'm not a professional in hazardous waste management.
Sure.
And hazardous waste investigations. There are professionals, licensed site professionals. There is regulations and standards that those professionals would be knowledgeable and follow. So we could reach out to one of them and provide guidance and provide back to the commission if they feel that is something that needs to be done and has some interaction with you guys, then we'll pursue that path. I'm not a professional in hazardous waste. I deal with vegetation and hydric soils and hydrology, so I don't want to bring you guys down the wrong path.
Could I ask if the commission could choose somebody independently?
Oh, we have that authority, Chapter 44.
I'm not sure if that's necessary. I think they're licensed in the Commonwealth, licensed site professionals. I think that should be sufficient.
It's about 60% of my legal work with LSPs. I know. And we also have the authority to have an independent person under Chapter 44, Section 53G. And we've done it regularly. We just did it in the dead zone. We hired GCA. They reported to us. If you hire the LSP, then I'd feel more comfortable if we used an independent source. And it's not, the applicant has to pay for it. It's not a big cost. We just did it. We've done it repeatedly by having a consultant come in and advise us. I don't know why there's a problem.
Perhaps if we discuss this with the homeowner and on the 9th decide whether he hires somebody that is approved by the commission.
Sure.
as opposed to the commission hiring somebody.
What's the difference? I don't understand the difference. Assuming the cost is the same for the same scope of work, whether it's hired through us and they're covering the cost, or whether they hire it directly.
Oftentimes, that's not the case, I found, but
Well, I think
You believe the cost is different?
I think what I was maybe hearing was that if we were to get a professional and then we were going to do a study and do a test and get it back to the commission says, well, that's nice, but we'd still like to have our independent consultant go out there and review it. That means the applicant gets stuck with it twice. So maybe we could have some coordination before that and get, maybe you would agree with the person that what we're going to use, or have a recommendation to go that route. What I'm saying, it's like if we don't need to do it twice, is what I'm saying.
That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Because he's going to get stuck twice.
Right.
The time.
Right.
We don't want that, but we have a bid process anyway. When we bring on a consultant, we typically ask for several reputable sources and get the most cost-effective one. I mean, assuming a competence level. That's not an issue. We're not trying to throw roadblocks up, but I think Skip raised a legitimate question, and it's probably easy to answer for everyone's benefit.
Right.
I don't think it's an issue, but talk to the homeowner or prospective homeowner.
further discuss it on the 9th.
Okay. All right, but before we go on, are there other members of the public or abutters that would like to ask a question or make a comment?
Let's go ahead. Let me thank the committee very much, and not only for this, but for all you do. The hours you put in.
Thank you, sir.
And particularly for your assistant here.
No, I can ask it when we're out there.
All right, so with your assent, then we'll adjourn to the 9th? No, I asked. I didn't see anybody come forward or raise their hand.
I'm in a butter.
Oh, sure, come on, yo, that was an invitation.
Hi, Lisa Cole. I live at 41 Robin Street, right next door. So the only question that I have is the 9th, when they come and do a site walk,
Yes.
what does that really do? Like, what are you going to ascertain when you're there?
We check the wetland boundaries.
Okay, that's all you do?
Essentially, like a lot of that Boston Brook may be atop a bank, but the area that we'd be most concerned with is where it's flagged.
Which is on my property.
I don't know which one you...
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yeah.
That's
the wetland.
Right here.
okay. So the property line is here. So that okay. I didn't even see that. I thought this was all on the property line. So we'd have to have your permission to go and just look at these lines here.
Okay.
Is that acceptable to you?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
We just eyeball it, and sometimes we ask for a soil sample because the flags are placed. There are different criteria to be used. But that's what Brad does for a living, and we've been doing it long enough that we don't have his level of expertise, but we can spot hydric soil usually.
Okay.
And that it's important to us for jurisdictional reasons, because it sets these boundaries, and these lines are the jurisdictional lines, that the 100-foot
Yeah, the 100
and the
and the-
200-foot line.
Yeah, in the holy ground, 25, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's the holy ground.
All right. So the other question I have is the house that's being put in, what type of a house? Can you tell by those plans? Is it a prefab? Is it a construction from ground up? What is it?
Well, we can't tell from these plans, but there will be construction plans that I'm sure will be available, because they've got to go to the building commission.
Okay, so for instance, my property has a high water table. And I'm concerned with, when they build the new house, what is that going to do to my water table? Is it going to put more water in my basement?
Well, that's one of the things that we do, because this is now going to be impervious land. Right now, this is like a big sponge.
Right, exactly. But
Takes
once you
all the
put
water.
once you put the foundation in, it changes the way the water goes.
Absolutely correct. And that's part of our job, is to make sure that there's a place from a runoff, a roof runoff perspective. Where does the water go? We don't want it going into your basement.
Correct.
That's part of our job. So we need to see, the first step is on the 9th, when we just go out and eyeball it to make sure the lines are correct.
Okay.
In our view. The second one, we'd be asking Bob to do calculations for roof runoff. Where does it go? How much water is going to be there? We ask for, 5-year, 25-year, 100-year storms. Where does the water go?
Okay.
Because we don't want it going into your basement.
Right.
Or anybody else's.
Right, okay.
So there has to be a mechanism for handling the water flow or the runoff, the discharge.
Okay.
And there are different ways to handle it. And you're right, it would be going right through your land and be probably heading for the brook.
Right, okay.
So that is part of our jurisdiction and responsibility.
Okay, so the walkthrough's on the 9th, and then what's the next step after that? Do they come back to you guys?
The date is the 12th of
Yes,
the meeting?
on the 12th.
So it's a
that-
public meeting on the 9th, and it's also a public meeting on the 12th.
Okay, to
So we-
continue?
Yes.
To continue, okay.
Yeah, we'll be continuing.
Okay.
All right?
All right.
So stay in touch with Kathy so you know exactly.
Yeah, Kathy and I know each other.
Okay, good.
All right, thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
John?
Yes.
I'm on the other house, 29 Myers Lane.
Can you come forward and use the mic?
It was more a question of the site walk in terms, are you looking at all the trees to see which ones could get cut down, or is that already approved, or is that?
No, nothing's been approved, and what we usually do is ask for a tree survey.
Yeah.
Because we want to know, and I think Brad indicated today that there are some 5-inch trees, there are some that go up to 16 inches.
Yeah.
So we typically ask for a survey, so we know how many trees would come down, and if they're within our jurisdiction, we have a performance standard that we typically, look for a replacement of trees. Now, there may not be enough room on that piece of property to replace the trees that are taken down. So sometimes we ask that they place the trees somewhere else in Milton, because the 3-to-1 ratio is kind of hard to fulfill in a limited area.
Okay.
So yes, we do look exactly what you're saying.
Okay.
And that's part of the alternatives analysis that Brad mentioned, because it's within the riverfront.
Yeah.
And that requires that you say, well, could you make a smaller house? Could you move the location? Could you save some trees by pushing it one way or the other way? That's the alternatives analysis that we have to go through.
Okay.
All right. I think Brad has acknowledged that there's an analysis that would have to go on. We're weighing priorities.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just curious about that. Thank you.
No, that's a good question. Anybody else, whether on a butter or just an interested person? Nobody else? All right. We have your consent to continue until the 9th.
Yes, definitely, and if, before the 9th, if the commission hasn't gotten a chance, I'd just ask you to read the narrative. There's a detailed riverfront analysis that...
That's good.
That
Well
way,
written.
that if you want more detail, we can talk about it at the 9th, and I could be ready for the 12th.
Okay, fair enough.
Very thorough.
That's good. Thank you. Thank you both.
Thank you.
Attorney.
Next on the agenda is 348 Truman Highway.
I did too.
That was cute. Any spirituality.
Yes. Did not. Yeah, well, all the more reason, right? Yes. That he was aware of it and chased it down.
Correct.
Why don't you want to do this?
Hello.
Hey, good evening and welcome.
Good evening. Would you like me to start, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
My name's George Collins.
They're having a party.
My name's George Collins. I'm a registered professional engineer from Collins Civil Engineering Group out of West Bridgewater, representing Charles Primpus for notice of intent associated with the upgrade of residential septic system. I have green cards, if you would like those.
That's great, thank you.
This project has been issued DEP file number 46-0527. This project has been approved by the Board of Health. I have a Board of Health approval letter, and then I also have the Board of Health approval for indicating that sewer is not available to this property. The Board of Health has a 150-foot requirement. This property is 311 feet from the nearest sewer hookup. I have those documents if you
If you could give those to Kathy, that would be very helpful to us to keep track of the record.
So the applicable wetlands for this property are actually off-site. The property is located on the southeast side of Truman Parkway, and there's an off-site wetland to the west located here, and another off-site wetland located here. It's my opinion that historically this may have been...
Can you hold on just a minute?
Sure.
Sorry, thank you.
There is a pipe that runs through here, 30-inch culvert that actually connects the two wetland systems. There is a catch basin here and a catch basin here, just small catch basins. They're not like the types you'd find on the road. It's more of a light-duty catch basins, and they appear to have been there for quite some time. So the wetlands are shown in green, the 50-foot buffer is shown in orange, and the 100-foot buffer is shown in pink. Basically what we did is we did the soil testing outside of jurisdiction in an attempt to keep the septic system as far away from the wetland as possible. So we did soil testing, prepared a plan, submitted it to the Board of Health, subsequently obtained approval from the Board of Health. I do have erosion control proposed, coming straight down the hill to the edge of the driveway, just to prevent anything from going towards the wetland in that direction. I'm also proposing silt sacks to be inserted into the catch basins during construction, just to prevent any type of siltation from getting into the catch basins during construction. And essentially that's it. If the commission has any questions, I'd be more than happy to attempt to answer them.
No questions. I appreciate the color-coded plans. That makes it easy for us. Can we add this to our site? Are you available on that day?
I'm actually camping with the Boy Scouts that weekend.
A worthy cause.
Is a site visit completely necessary for this project?
You know, the project looks good. We like it when people upgrade their septic systems because it helps the environment. So I think you're probably going to get some pretty positive supports. The only issue we have is the location of the wetlands, because somebody else could be doing something else with it. So if we approve this plan, we'd be adopting the location.
My experience is some commissions will specifically say that this is not an approval of the wetland resource line.
We've done that.
We've done that.
Yeah, and this is holding up a real estate transaction and then the delay of the meeting, that type of thing. But, I mean, whatever the commission, whatever you want, that's what we'll give.
We have certainly done that before, that we have not approved the wetland line. And this looks like that, you know, the upgrade of the system is a good idea. Anybody have any thoughts on this?
Straightforward.
I mean, we submitted it in middle of October, and then I think we probably just missed that particular cutoff date, and then the meeting got pushed off. So I know this is holding up a real estate transaction, but otherwise I wouldn't even be.
Hans, Ingrid, do you have any sense?
Seems
Generally,
like
if
there's
we go
minimal
to
work in the resource
what's that?
area. It seems like there's minimal work in the resource area.
Yes, yeah.
Not even within the resource area, within the buffer. So, I mean,
Okay, we have done it before. I just want to make sure everybody's
Yeah, I'm
comfortable.
fine with, we've done it before, and we can make that statement to go on the record, I think that's fine.
Only question I've got is, all right, we could actually entertain a motion. Well, let me ask this first. Are there abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? As I just indicated, sometimes we do approve a notice of intent without verifying the lines. The reason we don't want to verify the lines is that somebody else could come in and use the same lines to build an airplane runway or a McDonald's drive-through or something. So we don't like to do it unless we see it. In this case, it's possible to approve the notice of intent without verifying the lines because it appears to be most of the work is outside of our jurisdiction anyway. Do you have can you give me a ballpark estimate as to how far the river is from you?
The river, I believe the 200-foot buffer is just off the property, right in the parking. I paced off from here to the fence, and it was about 160 feet, and then the river was substantially further beyond it. I don't think the 200-foot buffer even comes on the property.
I mean, that's certainly my impression, just from my knowledge of the area.
The locus, there is a big gap between the north side of Truman Highway and there's a big wooded area. There's actually lawn and then a wooded buffer. I know the locus doesn't.
The dam is in the old factories down in there, so it's very deep back there.
And then this is just one lane of Truman Highway. There's a grass strip in the second part of Truman Highway, and then another substantial strip. So I did pace that off, and my opinion, the 200-foot jurisdiction is off property.
Okay. All right, and this is fairly deep into the property anyway.
Yes, I mean, this is probably, this is probably approximately 400 feet away from the river, the actual septic system.
Okay. All right, with that information, are people comfortable issuing an order of conditions? Okay, then is there a motion to approve this?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Thanks. Now, you're familiar with our regular boilerplate conditions, no storage of equipment within our...
Yes. Yeah.
But I assume that you can get in and out of there in fairly short order. And you don't have to store it. As long as you don't store the hydraulic equipment or you don't refuel within our buffer.
Again, this is a gravity-fed system. We're anticipating, like approximately a 5-day construction period.
Okay.
Get in and out of there.
But I assume that the contractor that you're working with is somebody that you know and trust.
Yes. Yeah.
Because it's the storage of the equipment that we're concerned with.
Yep.
Any refueling, et cetera.
Yeah.
I just didn't want you to be surprised, because when we vote so quickly, I just want to make sure you know that we have standard conditions.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yes. The answer to your question is yes. And then I'll also discuss this with my client and make sure everybody has a copy of the order conditions.
Perfect.
All right, because all I can imagine is, one of us driving, or Kathy driving by, because you see where the paved driveway is, that's right next to the wetlands. So you can't park or not you, but the contractor can't park the backhoe right next to our wetlands.
Yeah, I'm thinking this, we probably, everything would leave the equipment right there, but I can, I'll make sure I'll convey your concerns to my client and the contractor.
All right. Well, they're not just concerns, they're specific.
Yeah, I'll convey your requirements. I always make sure the contractor has a copy of the order conditions, because that's where we always have the big communication gap.
Yes, indeed.
Without them.
That's true.
And then, just out of curiosity, when would be the approximate date of issuance of the order conditions? Because I know the 10-day appeal period starts from the date of issuance.
Hopefully, by the end of this week or next week.
Okay, and then the 10-day...
After you record it, yes. Well, issue, yes. And then you
from the
have
date
7
of
days.
issuance. Okay, great. Thank you.
You get the next one, too?
Yes, I do.
Okay, next on the agenda, number 12, Notice of Intent, 101 Neponset Valley Parkway.
Wait till you get a load of this one.
We saw it.
Anyway. Again, for the record, George Collins from Collins Civil Engineering Group. I'm representing Tracy Lawless and Chris Shea. It's actually brother and sister. For the upgrade of a residential septic system. I have the green cards, I have the Board of Health approval, and the Board of Health waiver on the sewer connection. Sewer is actually in excess of 2,000 feet away from this property.
Is it really?
That's what GIS guy said at DPW, so I'm just going from, it seems odd, but
Just so that we are oriented, can you, first of all, are you familiar with some regrading and repaving that took place on Blue Hill Avenue, essentially across from the intersection with Neponset Valley Parkway?
I am not.
Okay, because we've been out right across the street in that area, and they were adjusting storm drains or something. It was about 3, 4, 5 years ago.
I remember.
We parked on Hemlock Drive and walked down. Remember all of the inspections we had of 52 Hemlock? And this was in the same area. We parked at the same house. It's right on the corner.
Right, just off,
But if you walk towards Mattapan Square, and you're on the right side of the street.
Because there's the stream that goes underneath the culvert and all of that.
And they were rehabbing the culvert, and they were changing the berm of the roadway.
Because they were widening it for passing.
Right. So there are a lot of wetlands right across the street.
I never knew there was a driveway access on the corner. That's a vicious corner. It is a vicious. Can you imagine trying to pull out of your driveway when you're there? Seriously.
So essentially, and then this project has been issued DEP file number 46-0526. May have given you the wrong number on the last one.
The last one was 0527.
Yes. This is a very unique piece of property. It's my opinion, the site has been excavated historically and excavated down to the ground water table, and that's why we have, if you look here, I think this whole area was dug out, and it resulted in these odd areas where wetlands were just are on the side slopes. So that, in particular, this particular area, you just walk out the backyard and it actually kind of slopes down, but down and up, and it's just wetlands in the backyard here. I don't know if it's an old water feature that was dug out a long time ago, but there's a big hole in the middle of the yard, and that has wetland vegetation in it. There's also like a swale here that also has wetland vegetation. There's bordering vegetated wetland across the street that's also associated with the brook. So that, all the bordering vegetated wetlands are shown in green. The 25-foot buffer shown in orange, 50-foot buffer shown in pink. And if you look closely, the 100-foot buffer zone is right here. So basically, the entire property is within 100 feet of a bordering vegetated wetland. We have the mean high water of the brook here. There's actually the mean high water of the brook over here that's not shown on the plan. The 100-foot inner riparian zone is located here. The 200-foot outer riparian zone is shown here. So this takes the cake. I do about 200 septics a year, and I've got about 2,800 septics under my belt, and this takes the cake. So basically, what I do, I prepare a worksheet before I go out to a site, so I know where I'm as far away from the wetlands as I can get. So this particular location here, that happened, first of all, the existing septic system comes out of the back of the house, so that was kind of an immediate governing element. And then we're trying to stay as far away from the riverfront, the brook as possible. And then I had the on-site bordering vegetated wetland to contend with. So basically, this is the location that I selected. We did percolation.
Where is it now?
It's right in the backyard, right here. If there's like a circle, a dash circle, just outside of the 25, that's where the leaching is now. And the tank is right up against the corner of the house. You can see like a gray dashed box right at the corner of the house. So basically, we're coming out of the back of the house, putting in a septic tank and a pump chamber, and kind of tucking the new septic system into the hill. I have a proposed dewatering pit. I have a stockpile area, and I have erosion control located right here. So basically, I believe what would happen is basically they would just come in and out of the property here, and construct a system, come through here. So just by looking at it, I felt like the only place that we really needed erosion control was in this particular area, because that's the downgrade of the proposed work. And I would completely understand if you wanted to do a site walk on this one. And if I'm not available, a member of my staff could more than likely meet you on the 12th. 9th. So, and again, we have Board of Health approval, so this is just...
Well, it's interesting, and as I said before, I think we're always in favor of upgrading the system because it helps protect the environment. This is a tough one. I'd like to see it. Can we add this to the 9th?
And this one doesn't have a real estate transaction, and obviously is a little bit more complicated, so.
It looks like the best possible solution now, based on the information that's here.
And is it ever, I forget, I think one site walk I did with you guys a long time ago, do you sometimes vote and approve plans right on site?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, we try to. We know the impact of delay, and if something's a good idea, then try to get it done.
Yep. So I guess at this point, I would request a continuance to the on-site on the 9th.
Sure. And that's a public meeting, and we can vote at that time.
Yeah. And this would be like the fourth site walk of the day, is that what we?
Correct.
Thinking? And you guys start at 8?
We start at 8.
So I was out there by like 9:30 or 10 o'clock or something like that.
You won't know until the end.
It might get
That's true.
might get shuffled based on how we travel around.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe I can, but I'll just plan on more than likely sometime after 9 on.
That's probably true, but if you stay in touch with Kathy.
Okay.
She's sort of the scheduler and organizer, boss, whatever.
You got it.
All right, were there any comments or questions from abutters or members of the public? Seeing none, we'll adjourn until this case until the 9th of December.
All right, great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
Actually, good preparation.
Yeah, that was good. Next on the agenda, number 13, notice of intent, 1259 Brush Hill Road. 1259. Good evening.
Good evening. Dave Crispin with the BSC Group, civil engineer and land surveyor. I think we've met most of you folks before. You're familiar with this property. Can I ask a procedural question?
Yes.
We have three files in front of you tonight.
Yes.
Can we hear them simultaneously, so the conversation, or is that?
Sure.
So just officially, you've opened all three?
We certainly can. I mean, it's the same.
In the interest of time, I think they're all related, and we can obviously have conversations about any aspect of any one of them.
Sure. That makes sense.
Let me deal with the easiest one first, the request for determination. Lot C in the back corner. Wetlands are way over here. This is the 100-foot buffer zone. There's nothing happening on Lot C on the house development portion of it. So I am hoping, because we are well out of the 100 feet, that we can have a negative finding on that, and I won't hold you to that right at this moment. I want to explain the rest of the project. What has to happen here first? That was the easy part. Hemingway Drive, which I believe, was everybody there when we walked this? It was about a year ago. I think you're all familiar faces.
Well, we've done it several times.
Yeah, I think you're all familiar faces. What's going to happen there in order to get these two lots to be building is we're going to be water, sewer, electric, and communications in there. Water line will come down in the existing roadway to a new fire hydrant at this point. Fire hydrant does two things. Fire protection, obviously, but gives it a blow-off point so the sediment doesn't build up in the line. Public Works always wants that. So we have a water line. Each individual lot will have the E1 ejector system or an equivalent to that, and that is a private little pump station on each lot that uses a common force main to push the sewer back up to the sewer on Brush Hill Road.
How far is that?
The distance?
Yes.
We're looking at repaving about 800 feet of it. The sewer is not quite that long. And the reason we're coming back to here is we've got to fix an old broken culvert. So if we're going to come, we might as well finish paving and do the whole stretch. Same width, same grade, same pitch, same everything. And this whole stretch of Brush Hill, Hemingway Drive pitches, as you would call it, to the right. So no new point source discharges, no changes in hydraulics. The hydrology on that's pretty easy. In preparation, and because we want to be as environmentally sensitive as we can, as part of the roadway notice of intent, we have a forebay and we have a rain garden. And even though the roadway does not go into this, we know there's going to be increased impervious from the driveways coming down. So the driveways drain, cross-pitched into the rain garden. This driveway pitches down into the rain garden, a pipe coming across into the rain garden and out, and we replace the little 6-inch pipes that's there with a 12, just so it's easier to maintain fundamentally. So the reason we filed 3 notices on this is it's much cleaner for the shellers to do the road and get the notice of intent for the roadway and the drainage system in place, because frankly, the lots will probably be sold, to give building family estates here. And it's cleaner, so you don't have a roadway attachment attached to a notice of intent on the house when you do it. That's our reason for having separate filings. Obviously, there'll be a silt-fence hay bale system on the downhill side and around the ends of the rain gardens. Because the houses have not been designed, we've shown a schematic one at about 3,800 square feet. You look in the notice, it says it may go up to 4,000. What I would expect would be a condition is, once the final house is designed, we probably need to come back to you and say, yeah, this is significant enough to amend the order, or it's not significant. I will tell you the hydrology was sized for a 4,000 square foot house. We just kind of drew something. What I do know is the grades work pretty good to get a circular driveway with a driveway on this side. This one's steeper, so we need to kind of snake out to get up to this point. The buildings all have foundation drains that will drain down into the rain gardens. There is also a Caltech chamber for all of the rooftop runoff. So we've done all the math. It doesn't change the peak runoffs for the 2, 10, 50, and 100-year storms. I think the whole system works. We've been careful about that. We have not, you have a 25-foot no disturbance, and I know this is tight, but we purposely cited this house, near this house, to kind of control all that alteration rather than have it way up here near the street, which you may recall is an alternate building envelope up front. I think it makes a lot more sense to keep these two together. And we did talk with the butter here earlier in the evening, so he was kind of happy to see that this was over here. So what we're looking for really is 2 orders of conditions, one for the roadway, one for the house, and a negative finding that this house is not within the buffer zone, mostly because we'd rather not get into a construction situation and have that question answered later. I think the answer is pretty obvious that it's a negative, should be a negative finding, hopefully. We're just trying to play it all according to Hoyle. Don't think I missed anything. So you got underground water. There is about 20,000 square feet of clearing in this lot here. No real, one other important thing. You may recall, maybe you don't, because part of this was with the planning board, but when we divided this, and just, I'm sure you all know the history of this. We went through an approval not required. The 4th lot down here was sold to DCR, correct? Hey, Matt. So we talked 2 additional lots, basically, is what's happened out here. But as part of that discussion, there was always a discussion about traffic on Hemingway Drive. This little green spur is a grass pave. It's a waffle kind of plastic concrete that lets the grass grow, keep the appearance of the road, but still gives some place for a car to pull off. And we talked about pull-offs with the planning board every so often. Another real big reason for keeping these 2 properties kind of together. We got, a pretty good site, place to pull off, pretty good site in both directions. So I think we've done our homework on this, and we're open for questions.
Well, and I haven't done enough homework on this, but why is there an RDA separate from the notices of intent?
The only reason we've done this RDA separately, and it's just for the house, the storm drainage here goes in as part of the roadway notice.
Right.
So the storm drainage and the road and the drainage all goes in part of that gets built by the Shellers probably before they sell the property or sell off a house. If you've ever sold real estate, you don't want 2 notice of intents tying, like finishing the roadway to finishing a house or vice versa. So we've always separated those into 2 different orders. This one is completely outside the buffer zone. The buffer zone is way back here. There's the 100-foot buffer zone.
And what wetland delineation are you using?
This was the one that we did the NRAD on a year or so ago, which is attached in the back of your documents. Okay. Sorry, I should have mentioned, we went through the whole ORAD, you may recall, and this is the same.
Oh, yeah, we've had 3.
The most recent one that I was involved with, let's phrase it that way, it was about a year ago, I believe.
Okay.
But that's really the reason on that, and my advice to the Shellers was we need to be all on the same page on that so that somebody isn't surprised when they come back and...
No, I get it.
you know,
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay. Keep going, because I think it was your idea to address them all together.
Yep.
I wouldn't want to respond to an RDA, especially if you're asking for a negative determination. If it's tied directly to the notices of intent, you're using the same lines. So I think it's your suggestion. Can you keep going and tell us about the notices of intent and how they're interrelated?
Well, again, the RDA is the future house, no work in the buffer zone. The first notice is the roadway improvements, the utilities, the repaving, the grass shoulder, and the 2 rain gardens. That's the roadway notice of intent.
And all the utilities.
It gets everything ready to access and service the houses.
Where are the 2 rain gardens?
There's a 4-bay here, which is primarily sediment control. The rain garden is a shallow, narrow band. It's about 2.5 feet deep. It's not big.
Aren't you conferring jurisdiction on us by putting a rain garden there?
What? No.
No?
No, it shouldn't be. Stormwater structures are, that have an order of conditions are not regulated resource areas.
No, but won't they become?
No.
I mean, if they function as a rain garden, wouldn't that eventually?
No, not in my opinion.
Okay.
Storm drainage structures that
No, I get that,
have an
but-
order of conditions are not regulated wetlands.
Yeah, DEP's issued guidance on that.
No. If we could figure out a way to do this on a matchbook in a little square, that would not be regulated.
All right, I wasn't talking about an anticipatory resource area, but rather we've had some structures that were, man-made that actually became wetlands after the fact, that they weren't designed as such, but they became that.
I suppose that's a possibility because we are creating these 2 structures, and I would not be surprised to see wetlands vegetation grow in the bottom of these with time. It's a fairly damp area over there. In my opinion, they would not be regulated under the Wetlands Act because they would be constructed under a notice of intent. And as you said, there is wetlands DEP guidance on that.
Provided they're maintained as a stormwater system.
Provided they're thank you, yes.
Now, that would be an area where it should be recorded, right, from an earlier...
Well, it'll be recorded with the roadway notices where that will go.
Right. No, we just had an earlier discussion about whether or not an operation and maintenance plan should be recorded. And sometimes we do and sometimes we don't.
O&M plan in the document, and it's really quite elementary. It's not a complicated one.
Can you talk about the wetland along Hemingway Drive?
Right along here?
Yeah. I understand that you're redoing the road, you're staying the same footprint, you're doing the utilities down the middle. What protections are you providing across the top of that?
The watershed's coming this way.
Yep.
But other than fiber roll or silt fence, really, that's
It's right up to it.
We're close to it, yeah. There's no choice there. We're probably within 2 to 5 feet. So that's why it's so important to keep the utilities under the pavement.
No, I get it. I agree with that. I'm just wondering, maybe over and above might be appropriate, and I'm not sure what that is, and that's what I'm asking.
I think the common sense thing is the wetlands are flowing towards the road, not vice versa.
Yeah.
This is personal, but I see hay bales along the highway with the wetlands uphill from it, and I think my tax dollars are putting hay bales, so this is kind of similar to that.
Yeah.
Okay. Other questions from commissioners? No? Are there abutters or members of the public that would like to ask a question?
We'll have some comments.
Make comments, criticisms, anything. We take everything.
Okay.
Welcome. Just please identify yourself for the record.
So, Nick Venke, I'm from 60 Hemingway Drive. I'm an abutter. I'm also co-president of Hemingway Drive Association. I'm here with my co-president, Dr. Burr, and a board member of Friends of Hemingway Woods. And I'm glad to see you all again indoors. I've been before you before. I appreciate very much the work you do there on the rainy, cold Saturday mornings, and of course in here. And I wanted to say a few things. One is I'm grateful that we got to this stage. I'm grateful to the Schellers for having revised the plans. This has been a long voyage since Milton Muse with 274. We're down now to 2 houses, and if we count the other one with the Hacks, 3 houses. So that's really kind of tremendous, I think, progress in that sense. The planning board kept after us to keep talking, and we've been talking for many months at different meetings. NEPRA has been helpful there. Others have been helpful. So that dialogue, I think, was productive. DCR stepped up and stepped in, guiding us and encouraging us, and as you just heard, made a purchase and has presented, actually, Jim Camo, the director of land acquisitions, presented to the planning board. I was not there, but he explained how important this area is. This is the first ACEC, and he considers it the most delicate ACEC because it's really bordering Boston neighborhoods. So, things have been going well. The neighborhood separately, we have extended our 50-year conservation restriction. So our minimum zoning is 12 acres. If you have more than 12 acres, you could do a 6-acre lot, but it's basically 6-acre minimum. That's been extended for another 20 years. And that affects like 12 families have done that, 130 acres. And that's done, that is, I would call real money, if you will, on the table, people making that commitment. And that commitment then goes further because the real commitment is what's the end game? Where do we end up? And so one of our members has donated or has decided to donate land to DCR. He has 27 acres, and then the balance of that property will be put into permanent conservation. So this really is in keeping with what we've been trying to do. So now we're here at this stage, and until yesterday, we were in a good position. We had been dialoguing, and yesterday, really, we're blindsided. I'm in a butter. I was not informed. This is not the first time. At least 3 other times, I was left off the list. Yes, I live in Canton, but the regs are very clear. You're supposed to do that, and the folks know it. I mean, I don't want to hear that it's, I can't believe it's an honest mistake. And Jim Camo, who the director of at DCR, was also disappointed that he's had, numerous discussions, of course, a negotiation, and to have this just come up and not have seen these plans is a disappointment. So we are right now not in a good place. We're, from the neighborhood, we're disappointed. And when we were in front of you last time, you put a stop on a presentation that we wanted to give 10 minutes, and we have Tom Palmer here to give a 10-minute presentation. Jim Camo thought it was a good idea that you folks would see in a very short presentation what the wildlife situation is here in terms of rare species. So if that can happen, because of the short notice, we do not have AV. We do have a computer, which I hope can do the presentation, take you through some of this very quickly. And then I do have some comments. I'm not an expert, but I do have some comments from some folks here, including Jim Camo, that may be helpful in guiding this discussion further. But the concern really is the wildlife, and that's why we feel like if we had talked Before this stage, we wouldn't have had this kind of conversation in front of you. This could have happened privately. But unfortunately, this is where we are right now. Maybe it's a good learning experience for everyone. I'm hopeful that we can get it back on track, but I do think we have to go through these other steps. So if you're in agreement, and Tom, is that going to work for you?
I can only show it to you on a laptop, on a Mac, which you can't do a slideshow on, apparently.
My real question, Tom, is can you do it in 10 minutes?
No, because it takes so long to get in and out of one picture. I can't go from one to the next. I can talk to you for 10 minutes, but I can't show you these pictures on screen. Believe it. I presume you're scheduling a site walk, and then there will be another meeting.
Well, there's been one site walk, though.
Yeah, I haven't seen the plans. I heard about the hearing yesterday, so I really feel like I came in one-legged. I couldn't call Kathy today because I was busy. I would have asked her, is there a projector? I thought there might have been one. So I really feel that I can answer your questions and talk a little bit about my view of the extreme sensitivity of this area, namely 9 state-listed species found in the vicinity. I was going to show you some pictures of them, and some of them have been found right on that road you see there. I was going to show pictures of those. And we know enough about, for instance, the blue-spotted salamander, how it migrates, that it's an issue with this development whether it will still be able to do what it can do today. And I think the challenge for me as a biologist is how can these houses be built to have the least impact on these rare species? I think we would like to talk to the state about it. We'd like to talk to you about it. But first, we need to see the plans. I'll ask you tonight for some plans. I would like to see the plans.
Can I just hold you for a minute and I've got 2 quick questions for you. One of them is this area, forget about the jurisdictional requirements for the Conservation Commission for the moment, but is this included in the ACEC?
This entire area is in the ACEC,
Doesn't it go all the way up to the
It goes all the way up to Blue
Wakefield
Hills.
estate? Yeah.
So it is not in the estimated habitat area. That was the lot that DCR took, so
No, I understand that, but does that involve a MIPA review because it's ACEC?
only if there's an appeal.
Okay.
We don't want an appeal.
And my second question is, did you say that the house lots would require 20,000?
About a half an acre of clearing.
Okay.
Most of them, both of them are on a grade, so there's some grade work to make that work. And I would like to comment, by the way, I have a green card from DCR, so DCR was notified. And
Okay, but it's a big organization, and,
I'm just saying.
We've also had conversations with them.
Additionally,
Just one at a time, because I saw you come in, but could you just introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Matt Scheller. I live at 1259 Brushville Road.
Thank you.
So I've been dealing with Jim Camo at the DCR throughout this process. We came to the agreement on the field lot, which, is critical to them. Additionally, I've sat multiple times in Jim's office and went through this plan, laid out where the houses were going to be, setbacks from the wetlands, and we've come to an agreement on also conservation restrictions on these pieces of property. So Jim is fully aware of our process here and what we have planned. So I just want to put that in.
No, and I appreciate that. And I actually think that Nick said that he appreciated the fact that at one time we were considering 274 units, and now we're down to 2 or 3. So That's important, but I'm concerned because it's a public meeting, and I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to be heard. And I think you agree with that. So but we're not here to slow you down either.
No, I understand that.
Okay.
The reason you weren't notified was because you're not in a butter.
I am on a butter.
To what?
To 152.
That's not what the project site is. The project site is Lot C, Lot D, and a portion of Hemingway Drive. And you don't, when you do a project on a roadway, you don't notify everybody on
Why were the
every...
Murphys notified?
I mean?
Why were the Murphys notified?
Part of their land is in Milton, and the Board of Assessors had them on the list, quite frankly. You get a certified list.
I talked to the board, so first of all...
Just make sure that the comments come to the commission, okay, not between yourselves.
So I did talk to, first, I talked to Mrs. Bowen, and she said the list comes from the assessor's office. I went to the assessor's office, and they said, no, it doesn't come from us. The developer hands in a list and signs that these are the abutting group. So it's a signed document, and that's the group that they then put on. So, my understanding of the process is it's the responsibility of the developer to put these names on. But irrespective of, so I think that is, that maybe not irrespective, that is a significant miss in my view.
Well, from a go-forward point of view, that you've got notice now, and the neighborhood association, are all members of the association aware that...
No one was informed. So
No. I know that they weren't informed by the green cards, but put that aside for the minute. Currently, right now, today, are all members of the neighborhood association
not all
aware?
of them, but folks that have been involved are informed. They're disappointed because we had anticipated at least a chance to talk about it. And, we've built a good rapport. We actually have a social rapport, and I think this comes in, as a very, how would I call that, a bitter pill in that.
Sure, but that's past. Let's be forward-looking, because you now have an opportunity, and we're not...
So
we shouldn't be rushed. We should not be rushed into this. It's a very significant area of land.
Correct.
So let's all look forward, and I think that over the next period of time that we'll have an opportunity for everybody to make presentations and be heard. I think that's to everyone's benefit on a go-forward basis.
Certainly.
So, and I'm not trying to cut you off. And actually, Tom, I asked you to hold a minute because you had the floor at the time, so I didn't mean to cut you off.
What my presentation is, and I feel like I can't do it on this laptop, is about the animals and plants of great rarity that are very close to this lot. I don't know of any that are on the lot because I stayed off the lot, private property, but nearby and public land. And if I could just refer to something that was discussed a little bit. This is, what, a rain garden?
Yes.
This is a forebay?
Yes.
This is a driveway?
Yes.
This is a driveway?
Yes.
We know that an animal that is state listed, namely the blue-spotted salamander, has been seen on this road when they migrate. And we also know that they tend to breed in floodplains. That's the foul meadow back here. We also know that we were not able to find any vernal pools where they might otherwise be breeding when we were on or near the property during site walks, for instance. So it's our conclusion that they migrate through here 3 times a year. The adults come from the undisturbed uplands, go to the breeding areas in the early spring, and return in a couple of weeks. Then around the 4th of July, the young ones leave the wetlands and come to the uplands. Most of their lives are spent in uplands. They inhabit burrows in the ground dug by other animals. And so what all of this building suggests to me is what provision is for them here for them to continue this migration that has been going on a long time.
May I ask a question, please?
Yes.
Spotted salamanders are a vernal pool species, is that correct?
Yes, if you find them in a pool, you can certify that area as a pool. But there's two kinds. There's the yellow spots, which are all throughout the Blue Hills, and the blue spots, which are only in this one spot in all of the Blue Hills.
But both are vernal pool breeding species, correct?
Yes, that's
Are there, and you said there's no evidence of vernal pools?
Right. I don't believe that the breeding area is in this area. I believe it's here. We looked for it. We didn't find it. That was something that a state biologist suggested as well, that they're using the areas that flood in the spring along the edge of the foul meadow. So beyond whatever a wetland line here is probably where the actual breeding area is.
And there's no other upland areas adjacent to that?
Back here, it's all wet. Oh, come over here, you get, well, here you see how it's coming in here. I think it would come very close here. What we knew is,
It's actually a couple hundred feet back.
Yeah. We know
Is
that
any of
they...
that, excuse me,
Yeah.
is any of that listed as priority habitat or
Yes,
listed
there's, I don't know if
within the
line is
property zone?
here. The line just nicks this lot here. But of course...
Not there. Way down 1,000 feet to the left.
Like here, maybe?
No.
That was
way down.
one of my slides that I can't show. I had an overlay. At any rate, the priority habitat is or estimated habitat is drawn by a biologist in Westboro. But what we have is evidence of them being right here. And,
Have you submitted identification for it?
Right, that stuff has been sent into the state.
Do you have copies of that you can provide us?
Yes, I had photos of the animals on the road, but I can't show them. I will show them to you.
We've seen it beforehand. This site, there's been a number of different projects.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand what the
Great question.
Yeah, these animals, the reason they're on the road on wet nights in spring is they're moving to or from the breeding areas. And they're not coming to the road because they want to be in the road. They're moving. And so my question is, could these two houses be built in such a way that the movement can continue, that they have a chance to reach these uplands? And I think you may know that there are 4 more houses proposed in these upland areas here. So there is a bigger picture here. And I think it would be something worthy of this commission to look into this question about what can be done in terms of these houses being built to make sure that they give these animals a chance to continue to inhabit the area. That's...
The other 4 houses, is that a different applicant or?
Yes, they're different properties, different lots. I think 2 more, is this Hicks?
No, it's it's further up on Avenue A, so there's...
1,500 feet
Is
to the
this
west.
Avenue A here?
Yes.
Yeah.
But the 4 houses aren't going there.
Not right here.
No, they're further down.
Not there either. They're further down.
But it is the same habitat as the blue salamander.
Well, right, it's the closed canopy upland woods is where they spend most of their lives. And so when these areas are changed by being landscaped and built on, they're not available anymore, but there might be sufficient that isn't built. And so it's a question of can they be connected?
What about migration through the wet area?
They generally might do that, but as a matter of fact, they weren't found over here. They were found over here on the road. They ultimately are headed for the upland. It would be nice if we could give them instructions to move through here. And look over here. This could be an opportunity as well. But this is where they showed up. But they are only one of like 6 or 8.
But what are you suggesting?
I'm
To
suggesting,
move the forebay, to create a corridor there?
yeah, like, could this drainage be done without building this entire margin?
Well, that's an excellent question, my
Yeah,
friend.
yeah.
Because technically, these two houses are exempt from the best management practices. Because this is an ACEC, we felt it was worthwhile to comply as maximum extent practical here, which is, in my opinion, full compliance. If the commission would rather not put them in there, I can tell you hydrologically, it's not going to make a huge difference. It's not going to make a measurable difference.
Yeah, but say that again, because I'm not sure what you're saying. That if you were to create a corridor between the two housing lots?
We designed the forebay and the rain garden to comply with the best management practices as if this was a Walmart or, whatever high standard you want to give it.
It's over and above.
Two individual house lots, roadway reconstruction are exempt from that requirement. We felt, knowing this was an ACEC and that it was a sensitive area, this was the right way to do it, was to put in the extra stormwater protection.
I don't disagree with that. I'm just saying, is there another alternative that would attain the same level of compliance that you suggested?
We could eliminate the two structures. I mean, the forebay portion is to correct sand and salt on the road. It might increase the peak runoff off a little bit. You increase the peak runoff into Foul Meadow, it's so huge, nobody's ever going to be able to measure it. So, if it's a real concern to have undisturbed woodland through here that is maximized, those two areas could conceivably go away without a significant impact hydrologically.
Okay. I'm just looking for alternatives.
We're not resolving it now, but it's a good discussion.
We discussed with the DCR when we sat down about having a clean corridor between those two housing lots for migration.
So it's a balancing act, and we're not there yet.
We happen to put, a structure there. Does the structure need to go there?
Or does it have to happen at all? Right.
Or does it have to happen at all, or do we want the clean corridor? We're open to anything.
Right.
Works.
Okay.
Everything.
Yep.
The fact of the matter is the roadway does not go into the forebay. It pitches the wrong way, and there's no point source discharge. And I don't believe Hemingway really ever gets salted or sanded, so there's no real sediment source. A steep driveway, I could see maybe that getting sand on it once in a while, so I thought it was worthwhile to put that extra treatment in.
Well, this is the kind of conversation that we would hope to continue. And there are other ideas, such as, looking at the stone walls and, what's involved there, that would allow further access using perhaps a porous or a pervious driveway material, are things, ideas that come to mind as other possibilities. And so that's really, some of the discussion that we were hoping to have before we get to this stage, which looks like a finished plan.
We're not, I'm not reading this as a finished, I'm reading this as a finished plan for the road and a schematic plan for the rest of it. Because they said that the house plans were not real, that the driveways were based on how they saw it laying out. So best a realistic condition based on what they were trying to do and being feasible. And we know that they're going to have to come back for the houses once that's developed. But they are trying to include the forebay and the rain garden in the first roadway. To me, this is really about the road, where we are right now. And if the discussion of the forebay and the rain garden, if that's something that's in play or not, then we need to have that conversation now as part of this first pass. The two buildings are going to come back to us. We're going to make them come back to us because they're not developed enough to have that conversation yet. We can have enough of a conversation here when we're talking about the salamanders or whatever other animals are in terms of what are the impacts on the migration and that, but that will all feed into the future discussion of the house plots.
Well, I would defer to the experts, but I liked the way this conversation was going. It seemed productive. And I think the neighborhood certainly would be very supportive of that kind of an approach.
There's another factor here, and that is, Hans, some of the commissioners have been out to the site. It's pristine. It's a beautiful area, and it's an ACEC. If you're not familiar with it, I think it would be appropriate, because I don't think we can resolve all these issues tonight.
I doubt it.
But I think it would be very helpful to have another site walk, or you could do it by yourself, but it might be a good idea for all of us to go.
Sure.
And it's a large area. Although we don't, not as large as it used to be. Smaller, thank you.
We're focusing on a much smaller piece of it now, yes.
And I don't know, what are we up to for site walks, Kathy?
We're not that bad, 1, 2, 3, 4, and this could be all put into the fifth.
Yeah, it might be worth trying to put it, squeeze it in, because some of them, I don't think it'll be, 123 Granite Avenue, we can drive through there.
As long as we stick to the locus, because some people like to wander.
Maybe you put it at the end also.
Yes,
That way
definitely at the end.
So one other comment, the grass paved product, fantastic product. Used it in a number of projects. It is fantastic. Highly recommend you use it wherever you can. I've had fire trucks run over, use it for fire trucks going around buildings and other systems like that. It handles a phenomenal load, and we should be using it everywhere.
Any other suggestions? It makes sense to keep the conversation going. It looks like it's got a positive direction to it.
The only suggestion I was going to make was Nancy Putnam, I think, has been in front of your group, the Director of Ecology and ACEC programs, and she's attended some meetings as well, separately on this. She might be somebody who could provide some good suggestions.
It's Nancy Putnam?
Putnam.
And would you take responsibility for inviting her if we do a site walk on the Saturday the 9th? Is that appropriate?
I'll take care of it. I'll invite her and Jim Kamal from the DCR.
Oh, that'd be great. All right, so we're probably going to be in the 10 o'clock area, ballpark, if we could end up there.
Okay.
You think that's optimistic?
I do, there's travel time, but that's all right. We'll put them out at 10.
Best of 10.
10 o'clock.
Okay.
12/9, it's a Saturday?
Yes.
I'm just writing it down, okay.
Is that good?
Yeah.
That makes anybody else like to be heard or ask a question? I think public discussion is good, and it's a good start.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Do you want to address any of the others, or do you want to wait and we can take a look?
I think we wait at this point. Appreciate your time.
Okay.
You've got other things to deal with tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
That was a good discussion.
Pretty good. About just in terms of the wetland kind of. As a wetland. It is. But is that what you're doing there? You're not doing. That's what confused me. Yeah, that's why.
Next on the agenda is notice of intent, 711 Randolph Avenue.
The HAC is still reviewing that particular.
Hang on a second. Can you say that again? Can you just listen up to this?
Yeah, sorry.
This is 711 Randolph Avenue?
Okay.
I'm asking for an extension because the HAC is still reviewing that project, so.
Do you want us to put it on December, or?
They've had it for 90 days, you tell me. Just because they're an
This was the
attorney.
hearing that was what, last spring?
Huh?
Was this the hearing that? No, I'm trying to remember, is the decision still pending?
It's in court, isn't it?
Or is this the appeal of the,
I would have
this is the hearing that was held here?
We're appealing the decision from the town, the HAC.
and they've heard all testimony, and they just haven't come up with a decision yet. So we're still waiting for their decision.
Okay. All right.
So we're asking for an extension to, say,
January?
February.
That's okay. What was
Slow month.
Wasn't there a case that somebody, I think it may have been Judith, didn't want to continue it too long? What was that, this one?
No, that did happen. They came in and spoke to the commission.
Correct. I mean, there's nothing we can do or you can do. We're just sitting here.
We're just waiting.
All right. So with no objections of the request of the applicant, then we'll continue it to February.
Thank you.
Perfect. That is 16. Next one is notice of intent, 374 Brook Road.
Good evening, Jim Burke with Selberg and Associates. I'm here representing Mr. Jack Dahl, who's in the audience tonight for the construction of a single-family home at 374 Brook Road. Just to kind of, we submitted a notice of intent a way back. We had a site walk. We revised the plans based on that site walk. There was a concern with regards to the existing retaining wall that was on the property with regards to its stability and the potential of construction to...
Can you hold on, Jim?
Yep. So the construction would weaken it and potentially have it fail. My client he didn't want to be responsible for the ongoing maintenance of this wall because he didn't believe he owned it. We did some research, and I submitted a letter to you guys that basically with attachments that pretty much clearly identify that the town of Milton owns that wall. We suggest, if you guys issue an order of conditions, we have no problems with the condition being if it can be proven that, the construction caused the failure of the wall, we'll repair the wall. But
what do you mean by if it can be proven?
Oh, yes, I mean, well, say, like I said, we had this conversation, that, there's so many other factors that could be involved. I mean, if obviously, you have an excavator going in there and it's rumbling around and the wall falls down, that's us. I mean, it's pretty simple. If a truck's rumbling by at, 10 o'clock at night and it falls down, it's a little gray. So all I'm saying is that it's, you've seen the wall. I'm not expecting it to fall down. I just, if it falls down during construction, it's ours.
Is it possible for you to keep any heavy equipment away from it, 20 feet?
Yeah, I believe so.
25 feet? So
Yeah, I
you're
think-
not surcharging it?
Correct.
That would
And
be
we
the
changed
biggest...
and we changed the design to accommodate that. We pulled out away from it, so it's kind of tough to see. I should have blown that up. But, that dark black line represents the wall. That garage, the yellow square, the small yellow square.
Build that last.
What's that?
Build that last.
Yes. And it's honestly, is that going to be single story, Jack? Or is that going to be the 12 by 24 garage?
To be honest with you, I don't remember.
Yeah. But, yeah, it's going to have the 4-foot foundation, and it's sitting right on top of the existing foundation, which is, the same as the garage. So once we collapse it, the excavation itself is essentially going to be there. We'll take the rubble out, rebuild the retaining
Same
wall.
foundation? Can you
It's
reuse
close.
the foundation?
No, I doubt it.
12 by 24.
Yeah. So we're a little bit in front of it, but, it's essentially the same spot. The driveway is shortened up a little bit. So we're bringing but we're staying along that same line. Yeah. And, we just have to construct a frost wall of 4 feet. The majority of it's going to be constructed. We can certainly
Well, I'm just thinking that the biggest contributor to the failure of the wall is going to be heavy equipment in that 20-foot, whatever that stripe is along the top of that wall. Right. Surcharging it and blowing it out.
Right.
So anything you can do to keep, to guarantee that you're not doing any heavy equipment along that line is going to help.
Right.
And the fact that you write in that letter that you wrote at the end that, if conditions fail due to the work, then that's on you.
Right.
And, yeah.
Has the town
I think that was the only issue that we had left, to tell you the truth.
Or has the town engineer responded, or has the town engineer been contacted?
Yes, actually, I gave you his email.
I believe you just commented on ownership. I don't think you...
Not on condition or anything to that effect. If there's any concern
But in terms of how you want that worded, I mean, one of my concerns was it's not just the excavation, it would be like a concrete truck or a cement truck coming in and sitting there. And do you have any objection to us saying you got to keep the fully loaded concrete truck off that driveway and pump it? I mean, I assume you can pump the concrete from the street.
Yes. Or you bring it on the front lawn. At that point, it's
like I said, it's not, you can actually park it, right here and certainly pump the whole thing. The garage, which is the closest, isn't a lot of concrete. But, you certainly can park the truck here and pump the whole site. The site's not that big either, so, there's not, you might have to do it anyway.
Can you go back? That struck me as being a different configuration.
It is skyscrapers.
So which one is it? Is it this one where it's set back? Or
That's the existing conditions.
That's the existing.
Right.
And then the
proposed is, you can see where this tree is right here?
Yeah.
So we're taking this off. That tree now, so we're taking a little bit of it off and pulling it forward.
And by extending it back here, how much? Is that additional square footage?
Yes, and that's in the alternatives analysis that we did. I want to say the number is like 596 extra square feet of impervious area that we're proposing. And my alternatives analysis states that, since we're providing a stormwater management plan, that all the additional impervious area is roof, and it's being captured and conveyed, so the impacts are negligible.
Where is it being conveyed?
Into the Caltech system in the back.
And then where does it go?
Into the ground.
But is it being directed? What I'm concerned is that if it's going in back of the wall, it's not going to help the condition of the wall.
Well,
can you convey it away from the wall?
It's a good 25 feet, and it's actually at the corner of the wall. I couldn't tell you either which direction the groundwater is going to even flow. It actually possibly could be going the other direction.
It could be, but my guess it's going towards the flow of the brook.
It's possible.
Well, I guess what I'm concerned with is if you're loading more water, you're taking all of this impervious surface, focusing it on in this area,
right?
And then if it's in back of this is the wall here,
I'm going to cast it.
You're going to put a lot of pressure on that wall. I know it's here, and the weak part is up here, but you're still going to have lateral pressure.
Well, to be honest with you, I don't think that wall is holding up that much, lateral pressure from hydrostatic forces to begin with. If you look at the ground, we've walked it, there's no breakout.
What do you mean there's no breakout?
there's no breakout with regards to, there's no like sort of weeping out of that wall.
There's a crack down the middle of it. So if there's any weeping, it's
Coming out there, right. I mean, so, I mean, it doesn't seem to me that the groundwater is going to be a significant impact to that. And again, you don't necessarily know. You could have a vein of sand and water goes that way. You didn't, I mean.
I heard Jim say that if anything happens to the wall during construction, it's on them. Now, that could be 3 in the morning or 3 in the afternoon, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm fine.
And the only comment I had was just, let's keep the heavy things away from the wall so we don't surcharge it. I mean, that as a
But
statement.
you're talking about surcharging with weight. I'm now looking at where's this water going that's, because there's an increase of, I know it's, you know,
It's not an increase.
590, yeah, it is.
No, it's not.
It's 596 square feet.
Oh, there's an increase of impermeable surface, but we're taking, all that 596 square feet is currently going into the ground. So we're basically, we're redraining the same amount of water that's landing on the site back into the site, whether it's going through a pipe before it gets
But aren't we
to the
concentrating it back where the Caltech is?
Right, but the Caltech system is built far, it's not like we're building it up against the wall. I can move it further if you want.
So your concern is that we're focusing the load?
Yes, we're focusing the load.
Okay.
After the fact, just as a design.
So move it to the left.
For that matter, I can put, we can put singles.
Trees that are on the site.
You know,
Yeah.
That's the only.
Put 2 and 2. I mean, we can have everything just go the other direction.
Feed one roof to one and feed the other roof to the other.
I mean, if you wanted to, we could put that, where's that? This, the 25-foot. I've already, I'm just trying to think of a distance here that would work. I mean, you know, you could put it, 10 feet off, have the stormwater control be 10 feet off
How deep
the westerly sideline.
How deep in the ground is that system?
Excuse me?
How deep in the ground does the Caltech go?
3 feet of cover.
3 feet of cover over the top of the system?
Over the top of the system.
How deep is the water?
What's the total depth of the
The total depth,
3 plus?
they're 330, so they're 30 inches with a 6. Huh?
You're below the wall at that point.
Yeah, the bottom of it is, yeah.
So you're below the water table?
We haven't done any soil testing. But my guess is not. I mean, we're above the floodplain at that point. We're probably right at the floodplain. So, and you get a full foundation in there now, and no sump pump.
No, right.
So,
So Jim, is there anything preventing the tanks from moving to the left?
Nope.
Trees? I thought those were trees, that's why.
There is, a 5-inch deciduous right there. We got a 6-inch there, which is going to be gone because of it, so I mean, you can trade the difference.
Right.
In the corner.
So.
Okay. And your calculation, I don't have them in front of you, your calculations are that the Caltech as designed is sufficient for the roof runoff?
Correct, yes.
Okay. All right, so if we move it, are you I know that Hans, you were concerned with loading of the wall.
Yeah, so at the end of the day, I'd prefer the wall not to end up in the river.
Yeah, that's good.
And to be clear, not asking to redesign the wall, not asking, just looking for a level of confidence that the wall's stable. So, I mean, that comes down to, I guess, the town engineer at this point. If there are any concerns about the condition of the wall, which I think it's still a valid question. At the end of the day, we prefer the not have to go through the process of determining whether construction the wall does fail. Right. I'd rather have a level of comfort in the beginning saying the wall's good, and we're going to do this to make sure that the wall doesn't.
I don't think anybody wants the wall to fail.
No, that's true. I mean, I think any structural or geotechnical engineer is going to go out there and say the wall's failed, just looking at it. It's still doing its job, but from, what's the life of it right now? No one really can say. I mean, sometimes those things can, hang out for another 50 years. But you don't know what's, but I don't know what's actually, how it was built. It doesn't look like it was built that well, to tell you the truth, but.
So I just, at the end of the day, I just don't want to poke the hornet's nest.
No, yeah.
And during construction.
Right.
All right.
So as long as you can provide some assurances.
From your perspective, if we craft the order of conditions in such a fashion that if it fails during construction, then the responsibility to fix it is the applicant.
If we break it, we fix it.
But that's different.
That's the problem.
Different. That's the issue. Because I want to know if you can live with the language. Because I would be inclined to say that if it fails during your construction, I don't want to have to go out there and try to retroactively prove that it was the weight of the concrete truck or the excavation or putting in new footings that actually caused it. So my preference would be to say, if it happens during construction, then you own it. If it happens a year or two down the road, then it sounds like the town owns it.
If it happens tomorrow, the town owns it. If it happens the day before you start construction, the town owns it.
But it's a time period, because we can't get involved in trying to prove as to whether or not the concrete truck was half filled or half empty at the time.
Well, I'm sorry.
Just for the record, Jack, can you say who you are?
My name is Jack Dolly from Northland. I'm the property owner. If an order, or when an order of condition is issued, it is closed out with a certificate of compliance. Correct?
Correct.
So if the wall fails while the order of conditions is open, I own it. If the wall fails after the certificate of compliance is going to be issued.
This could be the fastest certificate of compliance.
No, but that sounds real, right? That's clear. That's clear. And that's.
I don't know any other way to put a bow around it. I mean, during construction is not concluded until a certificate of compliance is issued by this board. I mean, you still have jurisdictional oversight of it while that is open.
Right. I can live with that. But I want to know if you can.
Yeah.
I think
that would be the slowest certificate of compliance ever issued.
Kind of like the NOI.
No, that's another comment, question. The footing of the garage, you're going to put a new footing in along the wall.
Correct.
What's the elevation of the bottom of that footing relative to the bottom of the of the wall?
All right, so we've got a garage floor of 37. We've got
33.
a bottom wall of 34, I want to say.
Okay.
33.
So you're actually below.
Yeah.
You're actually below the wall. Okay. My concern was, well, if the wall fails, is it going to structurally affect the house? It's not.
No.
It's going to fall away, and the house is going to be supported.
It's going to be supported by
the foundation.
By the soil beneath.
It's going to fall away, and then
right.
the other.
And the earth. Yeah.
It's going to.
It's not higher, and then this fails, and that slumps.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
So it sounds like you can live with that.
Oh, yeah, I can live with that. And my concern was if and when the wall is going to fail at some point. The failure of the wall is not going to damage the house. The house has its own foundations that are not dependent on the same soil.
Well, I think and also a benefit of this, the town's aware of it now.
Whatever that means.
Town meeting. Let's go to town meeting.
All right, was that the last of the list of concerns that we had expressed? Kathy, do you know, I mean, we had discussed a bunch of issues.
The abutters had.
The abutters were concerned.
Their concern was the garage.
The driveway.
Yeah.
But you're not changing that.
The garage was on the opposite side. We did change it.
You did change it.
Yeah, we went to the other side. I believe so.
Yeah.
I think we had our curb cut originally here.
Yeah,
Right.
you're keeping the garage where.
I pulled the driveway away from the wetlands because
Yes.
for obvious reasons.
You're keeping the garage where it currently is, right?
Correct.
Using the same
neighbors
curb
want.
cut.
Right.
Are there reasonable repairs that can be made to the wall? I mean, injections, doweling, mortaring?
I would have to ask the town engineer that question.
Yeah, that's the town.
Oh, right, you're not,
Right.
okay.
You like that one, Hans?
Not your client's wall.
Which is very important to ascertain. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah.
All right, so I'm just seeing if there's a consensus here that we could approve an order of conditions that move the cul-de-sac further to the left, correct? We're trading a tree for a tree?
Right.
Right.
Is that fair enough? Okay.
How far to the left?
Make it 15 feet.
Jim, you had mentioned another option of having, rather
Split.
than one, splitting it up in two.
You could split it. You could
What's the advantage? Or is there?
You're not focusing the load.
Oh, right, okay.
So that's good, if we don't focus on it.
Potentially.
Yeah,
I think it's irrelevant, but
I do have gas and
it might,
sewer.
if you're concerned, it might be good.
I can't move that sewer, because the sewer, so I might be a little close to the sewer line.
I think it's irrelevant. If we move it to the left, I think, because
I would
the
agree.
bottom of that is approximately the bottom of the wall.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not,
Right. And is there some kind of an invert? I mean, where does the water dissipate from?
Inverse 30, yeah, the inverse 31.5. So I'm already below the wall. Invert's already below the wall.
Okay. All right, so
the last question I have is, the trees are being removed, is there a planting plan? Just because we like to talk about trees.
I realize that, and if we can certainly submit a planting plan for your review
at a later time. Okay.
I would imagine it's going to be a fairly typical landscape plan for a single-family house.
Yeah, I'm just
native species.
Just counting trees.
But if you're removing the trees, there's still a 3-to-1 replacement. Whether it fits there or not, I mean, we can put them elsewhere. We've got this tree bank, sort of a hypothetical tree bank.
As far as tree removal goes. And what's the size?
Of the replacement trees? Or
No.
Of the considered
The
trees.
applicable trees.
Right, yeah, the considered trees.
No, I don't, do we have a performance standard for that? I don't know, was it 2.5 inches or 3 inches? That's what we're replacing.
2.5 and
Those are
3.
saplings, those aren't trees.
Well, when people try to replace the trees that they cut down with saplings, not trees, you may live to regret that.
Well, the property wasn't well maintained, so there are a lot of saplings on that site.
All right, so, I mean, honestly, it looks like I'm looking at 4 5-inch trees and 1 15-inch tree.
Well, 5-inch trees, that's a tree.
Yeah.
And then there was
Mine
one,
was the 15-inch one.
I thought there was one messy 4-inch that we were going to take out because it was in 1 4-inch tree.
Well, what's the
species of the
15-inch?
15-inch tree? What, with the kind of tree, the 15?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, all I have is deciduous on here.
Where is it?
In the backyard.
Okay, so, but it might not be an even swap, because if we're moving the cul-de-sac, yeah, it sounded like it is an even swap, that we don't have to remove the other one. But
Is that
maybe
15?
No, the 15-inch was coming out anyway because it's right on the setback line, and the house is going on the setback line.
So we need the planting plan, what's being removed and what's being planted.
Yeah.
And so the 15-inch tree,
You're crowding it with the new floor plan.
right there.
Oh, right, okay.
But that's coming out anyway.
Yes. Independent of the cul-de-sac.
All right. So you're talking 4 5-inch trees, 1 15-inch tree,
And 1 4-inch tree.
and 1 4-inch tree. All right. So that's 18 trees. Or saplings.
Sapling.
I'll be honest with you, you're hard pressed to get 18 trees on that lot.
Right.
Oh, no, that's the...
They go to the bank.
Yeah, they go to the bank. The tree bank.
Was that along here, this back?
That lower zone on the other side of the wall. A couple willows there would be perfect.
The tree bank.
Actually, a willow or two down there probably wouldn't be bad, right?
Probably wouldn't be bad at all.
Wouldn't bad at all. That'd be constructive, reduce the flow. The tree would probably do really, really well.
All right, so is anybody comfortable or uncomfortable with a contingency that, subject to the approval?
I'm comfortable.
Okay.
I'm good.
Everybody? Okay. I mean, it's common. I mean, we've certainly done it in the past. And other special conditions, like keep the heavy equipment off the driveway? And what do you do in terms of, I mean, this would be a terrible place to park construction equipment.
I honestly don't think there's any place to park construction equipment on it. You're going to be doing daytime, day construction. You're going to set up for the day and then you're going to pull out. You're going to have, then you'll have your regular pickup trucks and the like.
You know a lot, right? Literally right across the street.
There is. Yeah.
There's also schools there.
They get Kelly Field.
No, but after, if you could probably get access to park the trucks there at night and bring them over.
Like I said, it's a single-family house. I think, the demo in that house will take a day and a half.
Yeah, it'll take an afternoon.
With the condition of that house, yeah.
So then, the foundation's gone, and you're going to have, the excavation of it is basically done. It's going to go quick. I don't think you're going to necessarily need to store it. I mean, you could talk to the town, maybe keep the excavator on a flatbed across the street for a night.
I mean, put a condition in there, I'm just, sort of I read enough of these things, but I think Kathy can write something, no heavy equipment, dumpsters, material storage, fill material, staging material, or construction-related equipment shall be stored
Off-site.
Well, right. Within 25.
next to the stream, within
25 feet of the wall.
Something like that.
But we have a standard. It's our buffer zone. It's 100.
We're talking two different things. We're talking about not putting any weight on that portion of the thing.
On the right-hand side of the lot.
On the right-hand side of the
Yeah,
lot.
but that's
one
a
issue. And
different
the other
one, yeah.
issue is the parking of the trucks, which is effectively not on site.
Okay, all right.
Zero. It's someplace else, and I would think you could use the lot across the street. I mean, you could come to an agreement.
We'll talk to the school department. Is that who owns it?
I don't know.
It's down in Milton a lot.
So, I think that's...
You get two things. You get the school department, you get the park department.
Right.
Did you get any of that? You want me to write some of that? You want me to send
Yes,
you an
can
email?
you send me
I
an
mean,
email?
yeah,
I
as far as
understand what you mean.
construction management, we'll have to deal with it.
I'll send you an
Talking
email.
about heavy equipment, I mean, you're talking about
I'll try to
construction
write a
material.
clause, and then you guys can read it when you go to vote. How's that?
He's talking about construction material not being allowed on the lot.
No,
You guys
we're
are
just talking about,
heavy
don't put anything that applies weight. It's anything that applies weight along that stripe of the wall, because we don't want to surcharge it. And the last thing we want to do is surcharge it now, and it fails, it accelerates the failure of the wall.
Right.
Those are two different provisions, Ken.
Yes, I know that, but he was telling me one, you guys are telling me.
At the same, yeah.
Trying to distract.
Just send me the email, then I'll forward it to them.
All right, okay. I'll try something.
Okay.
I mean, I don't want the wall to fail either.
Right.
But it's slow, see it.
All right, with those, any other special conditions?
Just how do you want to word about the wall? It should be the responsibility of the applicant from construction till the issue of
From the order of conditions until such time as the certificate of compliance is issued.
Is issued, yeah.
I do like the willow tree idea. You could easily throw 2 willow trees down in that pit, right? I mean,
Probably not, we should probably say within certificate of compliance is recorded rather than issued.
Down in the
Right?
pit there?
yeah, the low side of the wall.
They don't own it.
It's the town's.
Why is it green? That's part of the property. That's part of the property. I mean, that's why you color it green, right?
You want 2 willow trees?
No, I'm just saying.
Saplings.
Willow trees do wonderfully in wet conditions. And they would. Yeah, good night. I'm just making a comment. I'm not.
Come up with plenty plan for you.
So I'm going to.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right,
We're good?
Josh.
I got to go to Diana. So Kathy, you'll see something Thursday.
Okay.
Yeah, why wouldn't we vote?
Do the Cape?
We are.
Okay, I just want to make sure we get this right. We're moving the cattle tax 15 feet to the left of the wall.
No,
No,
15 feet to the
to
left.
the left.
Oh, to the left.
To their left, yeah.
So Jim, you're going to give me revised plans showing all this, right?
Yeah, 15 feet, it's going to line up with the west side of the building.
Okay, 15 trees are being removed. I mean,
18.
18
Well,
will have to be replaced.
no, there are 6 that are being removed, but which will require 18 replacements.
Replacements, okay.
We'll provide 18. Put it in the back.
Okay, and revised plans to plan. No heavy equipment, no heavy debris to surcharge the wall, and then about the responsibility of the wall.
Correct.
Till all the condition is recorded.
Recorded,
I mean, the
correct.
certificate of compliance.
Is recorded, correct.
Okay.
Issued or recorded?
Recorded.
Okay.
Okay? Anything else? Any members of the public, abutters that have a question or want to make a comment? Hearing none, is there such a motion to issue an order of conditions based upon the plans that we've received and to be amended to reflect the special conditions that we just
And the planting plan to be provided.
and approved,
Right, and approved.
subject to the approval of the commission.
So moved.
Second? Any discussion? All in favor? None.
Thank you very much.
All right, thanks, Jim. Thank you, thank you. That was 374. Now we've got 333 Hillside Street.
I submitted a letter requesting an extension till April to get back to the growing season. I apologize for this getting kind of screwed up. It's lack of communication between me and the contractor, I would have to say. And it's not necessarily Jim DiPaolo. I think it's his site guy. Nuno, I think his name is. And I'll just be looking to get it. The site looks good. I mean, as far as it's stabilized. It looks, it's not going anywhere.
How is the swale, if you're leaving the house and you're heading towards Hillside Street on the left?
Yeah.
That looked awfully deep to me in terms of, I thought there was an agreement that it was going to go from 16 inches to 9 inches. But when I looked at it, it looked a whole lot deeper than 9 inches.
From the picture in the field?
No, I was there.
Yeah. It's about 9 inches is more than you think. I mean, it's
Going nowhere.
it's good. I mean, the swale itself is, I haven't seen it in operation. I just haven't been able to get up there during the rainfall. But, it's all juded up. I think once the vegetation takes hold, I think give it some time, I think it'll be fine.
Okay. All right, so that'll be continued until April?
That's the request. The last I heard from Nuno, he was going to go out there and pull the plants, and this was like 2 weeks ago, and regrade it, and I told him not to, and I'm hoping he listened to me.
What's the status of the turnaround?
The status of the turnaround is that's something that my client and the planning board are like not listening to each other, or I don't know whether miscommunication's going on in there, because my client says that's the way they wanted it, and he did it, and the planning board's now...
Planning board or the fire department?
Planning board.
I thought the fire department was saying they needed a bigger turnaround. I couldn't even turn my
The
car
planning
around.
board said
No.
it's one size, and then the fire department said no to the planning board.
Right, and then the thing is, then by the time we staked it out for observation, the contractor came in and built it, and then the fire department was like, and then took all the gravel that was there. The gravel that was there was perfect, as far as I was concerned. I mean, so what my suggestion is going to be is just bring back the gravel and put it back to its original size and just leave it alone. Because the planning board was fine with the gravel. I assume you guys are okay with the gravel. And just be done with it. So that's going to be my suggestion, but my client's kind of breathing fire right now.
I can understand why.
So,
All right, so that one's continued, and that is the end of it, except for additional business. Annie?
Thank you.
Hearing none? Thank you, Jim. Thanks. Hearing none, is the motion to adjourn?
So moved?
Second? All in favor? We're adjourned. Thanks.